Introduction. Traversing the early stages of the investiture of the gods, one becomes Shen Gongbao, destined to ascend the divine list, awakening a system that returns tenfold for accepting disciples. Engaging in the various menial and arduous tasks for the Chan Sect solely to gain the recognition of the primordial one. Aspiring to become one of the 12 golden immortals of the Chan Sect. Fully aware of the narrative surrounding the investiture of the gods, Shen Gongbao deems it trivial, too limited in scope. Starting from the acceptance of the disciple Nezha, and including the spiritual pearl Ao Bing and Yang Jian, Shen Gongbao steadily rises amidst the calamity of the investiture, ultimately achieving the state of Han Yuan. Chapter 1. Shen Gongbao, the shadow of the Chan Sect? In the primordial wilderness, by the shores of the eastern sea, black waves roar, crashing upon the shore like a myriad of dragons. Shen Gongbao stands atop the rocky precipice, splashed by the frothy surf. His black robe flutters in the wind. Before him, a spiritual pearl hovers, pulsating with an icy turbulence. Shen Gongbao's aura quivers, resonating faintly with the Tao of heaven. The surrounding void can scarcely contain the energy, suddenly lamenting and fracturing. Countless cracks emerge, resembling a spider's web. Chaos energy surges forth, enveloping Shen Gongbao. All spirits sense the terror, falling silent in submission. The vast ocean stretches for miles, momentarily silent, as if in a desolate abyss. Having traversed the primordial realm for centuries and orchestrated numerous schemes, I have finally succeeded in replacing the spiritual pearl with the demon pill. Oh, old loach, should you falter at this critical juncture and thwart my grand design, do not blame me for flaying your Eastern Sea Dragon clan and binding you for eternity. Contemplating his imminent journey to the Dragon Palace of the Eastern Sea to accept Ao Bing as a disciple, Shen Gongbao steadied his thoughts and gazed into the sea, declaring, "Now that I have acquired the spiritual pearl, I shall genuinely take the first step in defying fate. The tale I previously chose to ignore shall no longer remain." In the waters, Situ Shui, who had been lurking in the shadows, quietly observing Shen Gongbao's actions, was struck with astonishment upon seeing the spiritual pearl. Upon hearing Shen Gongbao's unabashed remarks, she was further appalled. "This is dire." Without a moment's hesitation, Situ Shui prepared to flee. As a spy sent by the infinite immortal to monitor Shen Gongbao, the former demon-catching captain, she understood well that Shen Gongbao's years as the Chan Sect's shadowy operative, stirring turmoil and vanquishing demons, rendered him a force far beyond her own. Engaging him directly would be exceedingly unwise. Moreover, the spiritual pearl and demon pill were originally meant to be delivered by Brother Tai to Qintang Pass for disposal. Yet now, Shen Gongbao has somehow managed to steal the spiritual pearl. This information, which concerns the success or failure of our Chan Sect's grand design, must be relayed back to Yushu Palace post-haste. As Situ Shui anxiously pondered, she urged her evasion light to its utmost limit. However, at that moment, she heard a buzzing sound beside her. Suddenly, lightning flashed before her eyes. Shen Gongbao had inexplicably blocked her path. Having followed for so long, why the haste to depart? Shen Gongbao regarded Situ Shui, speaking leisurely. "Shen Gongbao." Situ Shui's expression was one of sheer astonishment. Upon hearing the ominous words of Shen Gongbao, she sensed impending doom and resolved to flee without delay. However, she was taken aback by the swiftness of Shen Gongbao's escape. Before she could react, she was intercepted midair, too fearful to engage him in conversation. With a flick of her sleeve, Situ Shui released a white bone, channeling her magical energy as she declared, "Bone sealing technique." Instantly, a mountain of bones materialized, within which the spectral forms of great demons prowled and roared, ready to devour Shen Gongbao. Yet, in the face of such a spectacle, Shen Gongbao remained indifferent. To employ a standard demon-catching spell against me? How laughable! As his words fell, a flash of lightning ignited in his eyes. In the depths of his mind, a faint celestial sound resonated. Bone sealing technique, weakness has been marked. He then scrutinized the imposing mountain of bones before him, where the nodes and crucial points of magical energy became starkly evident. With a surge of thunderous force, he charged against it. Situ Shui let out a horrific scream, her 7 orifices spewing flames as the mountain of bones crumbled. The aftermath of lightning and fire swept across the eastern sea, instantly evaporating miles of ocean. Countless sea creatures perished on the spot, their charred remains littering the exposed seabed. The spectral forms of the great demons, still imprisoned within the bone-sealing technique, roared and attempted to bite. Shen, without hesitation, Shen Gongbao let out a sharp reprimand and made his choice. With a swish, the vast calamity surged forth from his primordial spirit. The divine thunder, coursing through the void, underwent a transformation, morphing into a crimson rainbow that tore through the fabric of space, soaring upwards. It collided thunderously with the primordial Tao rhythm. In an instant, the heavens and the earth lost their colors, engulfed in a dim gray. Fortunately, this spectacle did not linger for long. The gray that enveloped the world soon receded, and Shen Gongbao immediately received feedback. Consumption of calamity has been completed. Erasure of the saint's Tao rhythm is finalized. The host has shattered the saint's Tao rhythm with the power of calamity, unlocking the privilege. Saint-slaying beginner. Situ Shui was taken aback, astonished by the scene before her. While she was oblivious to much, the trace of calamity that had just erupted from Shen Gongbao was all too clear to her. It was unmistakably the aura of calamity. However, despite the saints' disregard for causality, they were reluctant to be tainted by the power of calamity. How could a mere golden immortal bear such weight? Situ Shui was at a loss. Yet, there was no time for contemplation. In the fleeting moment when the saint's Tao rhythm was erased from the Ascension Order, the residual waves swept towards Situ Shui. Realizing the terror that awaited her, and knowing she could not escape death, Situ Shui could not help but howl. Shen Gongbao, the heavenly sovereign's restrictions have been activated. You are rebellious and unrestrained. Slaying fellow disciples' divine retribution shall surely follow. Shen Gongbao coldly regarded Situ Shui, witnessing her spirit shatter amid her fearful screams. Even the chance of reincarnation was utterly erased. He then brushed away non-existent dust from his attire and muttered to himself, "The restrictions of the primordial one? Since I dare to take them, I fear not his pursuit." As his words fell, he issued a light reprimand. System. With a flash of brilliance, countless Tao rhythms converged in his mind, forming a luminous screen. 10,000-fold apprentice return system. After the host accepts an apprentice, all their gains will increase 1,000-fold, returning to the host. Host, Shen Gongbao. Cultivation, early golden immortal. Apprentice, none. Return, none. Spell analysis, Qiantian Zixiao divine thunder. Yuming Gue water Yin thunder, bone calming technique. Unlocked privilege, saint-slaying beginner capable of disrupting one's own causality under great calamity, shielding all calculations by the saint. Gazing at the rudimentary system information, Shen Gongbao shook his head. The disciples I previously accepted ultimately proved to be of little use. After years of guidance from birth to death, they returned to me but a mere trace of calamity. Now, having erased the primordial Tao rhythm from the Ascension Order, they are completely exhausted. Nevertheless, there is no need for lamentation, for the reincarnated spirit pearl, Ao Bing, is the true feast. Chapter 2. Accepting the spirit pearl, Ao Bing, 10,000-fold return. With his mind made up, Shen Gongbao no longer hesitated. He transformed into a streak of light and surged into the eastern sea. Before long, he descended into the depths of the ocean, where a fiery inferno of molten lava resided. The magma churned violently, akin to an enraged dragon roaring, releasing a plethora of acrid sulfurous fumes. Merely gazing upon it was enough to cause a painful sting in the eyes. Yet, as this furious, rolling magma collided with the myriad chains that intertwined and shimmered with boundless scriptural brilliance, it resembled a venomous serpent struck at its most vulnerable point, immediately withering, cooling, and falling into silence. "Dragon Palace of the East Sea," he murmured. Shen Gongbao halted his swift descent, surveying the scene before him. This was a stark contrast to the Dragon Palace of the Journey to the West era, a realm filled with treasures and radiant spiritual light. The current Dragon Palace was, in reality, a prison entangled with the Dragon Clan and myriad demons. At the very moment Shen Gongbao ceased his rapid descent, a heavy and oppressive force swept through the void. As it passed, the already somber and fearsome Dragon Palace, illuminated by the fiery lava and iron chains, grew even darker. Accompanying this presence, a deep voice resonated. "Shen Gongbao." As the voice echoed, a colossal figure materialized before him. The mere head of this being resembled a mountain, its cold, piercing eyes fixed on Shen Gongbao, exuding an aura of ferocity that suggested it might devour him at any moment. Under the scrutiny of such a formidable entity, Any ordinary person would have quaked in terror. However, Shen Gongbao was no mere mortal. Unfazed, he met the gaze of this giant. After a prolonged silence, during which the beast eventually lowered its gaze to avoid direct confrontation, Shen Gongbao slowly spoke. Dragon King, as per our prior agreement, once I present the spiritual pearl, you shall allow Prince Ao Bing to become my disciple. Indeed, the being before Shen Gongbao was none other than the core of this underwater inferno, the very force that restrained millions of dragons, confining them within this prison. The Dragon King of the East Sea, Ao Guang. Hearing Shen Gongbao's words, Ao Guang exhaled two icy breaths from his nostrils. He was acutely aware of the implications behind Shen Gongbao's emphasis, which stemmed from a concern for unforeseen complications. He replied, I have no intention of violating our agreement. However, should you attempt to deceive me, you ought to be aware of the consequences of angering the Dragon Clan. The notion of apprenticeship had been previously established. Shen Gongbao was to procure the spiritual pearl to assist the Dragon King's son, Ao Bing, in executing a grand scheme transforming his demonic essence into pure spiritual energy, thereby allowing him to join the teachings of the Chan Sect and ascend to immortality. This was all part of a larger plan to orchestrate the eventual deification of the Dragon Clan, liberating them from this boundless inferno. The stakes were incredibly high, transcending merely the future of Prince Ao Bing. It encompassed the fate of the entire Dragon Clan. Therefore, the gravity of the situation warranted an exceedingly stern demeanor from the Dragon King in his dealings with Shen Gongbao. Even disregarding this, the Dragon King of the EC had no compelling reason to treat Shen Gongbao with excessive courtesy. After all, the Dragon Clan was once the formidable sovereign of the primordial world, instilling awe across the realms. Despite their decline during the previous calamities, which forced them to seek refuge with the Heavenly Court and confine themselves within the depths of the EC, there might remain formidable enough to command respect. Moreover, with the impending calamity of the investiture of the gods, the seemingly harmonious facade among the Chan Sect, the Jiao, the human sect, and the Heavenly Court concealed a torrent of undercurrents. The Dragon Clan, along with the myriad of demons suppressed beneath their dominion, wielded a power of significant consequence. It was not merely about Shen Gongbao, a mere disciple of the Chan Sect. Even if the 12 golden immortals of Yusu Palace were to descend, the Dragon King would not necessarily be inclined to treat them with deference. Hearing the arrogance woven into the Dragon King's words, Shen Gongbao showed no signs of retreat. Instead, he retorted, likewise. He continued, I hope the Dragon King can contemplate carefully, lest any missteps bring calamity upon your clan. With that, Shen Gongbao executed a swift gesture, causing the spiritual pearl to manifest. The frigid energy surged with an overwhelming force within the depths of the ocean. The ethereal azure luminescence it emanated hinted at the potential to freeze even the flowing lava in its wake. This is the spiritual pearl, the Dragon King mused, a flicker of surprise illuminating his eyes as he extended his claws toward it. However, in that instant, Shen Gongbao snapped his fingers, unleashing a bolt of lightning that struck the Dragon King's massive claw, forcing him to retreat. He then calmly remarked, Dragon King, it would be prudent to refrain from any rash movements before Ao Bing takes his vows, to avoid misunderstandings that may jeopardize the amicable relations between our clans. Hiss! The Dragon King inhaled sharply, his magical energy swirling rapidly to dispel the numbness from his claw, a hint of wariness crossing his mind. Shen Gongbao appears merely to be of the golden immortal realm, yet he effortlessly bypassed my dragon-scale defenses. Moreover, who is the formidable presence behind his acquisition of the spiritual pearl? Gazing at Shen Gongbao, Ao Guang's eyes flickered with newfound scrutiny. However, he quickly tempered his thoughts and altered his address. There is no need for such formality, my friend, since it is merely required for this spiritual pearl to be integrated into my son's being to facilitate a transformation, enabling him to join the Chan Sect and accrue merits, ascending to immortality and leading my clan out of this endless purgatory. Why would I act unwisely at this juncture? As he spoke, the Dragon King opened his mouth and released the dragon egg. Observing Ao Guang's lowered stance, Shen Gongbao nodded in approval. That is most agreeable. With no further delay, he unleashed the frigid power contained within the spiritual pearl. An immense azure radiance illuminated the entirety of the Dragon King's underwater palace, the pure spiritual energy surging forth with increasing fervor, sweeping across all directions. The sea water instantaneously congealed. Unbeknownst to how many fish, turtles, shrimp, and crabs were transformed into ice sculptures. Even the magma inferno, which roared day and night, eternally fervent, was directly encased in ice in the vicinity of the sacred pearl. Having lost its former heat, it metamorphosed into pitch black, solidified stone. Shen Gongbao paid no heed to anything else. He merely guided the spiritual energy of the sacred pearl towards the dragon egg. Within the dragon egg, the young dragon had already fully matured, having deliberately suppressed its emergence, awaiting the arrival of the sacred pearl. At this moment, sensing the overwhelming, frigid energy, the young dragon within the egg strained with all its might. Crack! Crack! The delicate sound of the eggshell shattering resonated from above. The sound grew ever finer and more frequent. In the blink of an eye, a small dragon, enveloped in chilling energy, surged forth from within. Roar! A tender and melodious dragon's roar echoed, resonating through the depths of the sea, reverberating in all directions. The myriad chains binding the dragon pillar trembled in unison. Below, the magma surged like a furious tide, generating vast clouds of steam. Before it could rise, it was once again crystallized by the icy force, cascading down in flurries. Thus, the cycle continued. In the interplay of ice and fire, the seabed seemed to reenact the primordial chaos of creation. Simultaneously, the essence of the sacred pearl gradually dissipated, having completely merged with the body of the dragon prince. Within Shen Gongbao's mind, a celestial resonance stirred. Detection of an innate spiritual body. If the host can take it under their wing, they shall receive substantial rewards. Sensing the myriad possibilities, he was naturally pleased. At once, he gathered his magical energy and emitted a clear, resonant call. Good disciple, now that you have emerged, hasten forth to pay your respects to your master. Chapter 3. The Power of the Spiritual Pearl, the Great Golden Immortal. Upon hearing the summons of Shen Gongbao, Ao Bing, who had long been attuned to the spiritual realm, circled in the void before transforming into human form. With swift steps, he approached Shen Gongbao and bowed deeply. Although he appeared as a mere 3-year-old child, he exuded an aura as formidable as that of a mountain of gold or a pillar of jade. Thud, 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 he bowed 3 times. Disciple Ao Bing pays homage to my esteemed master. As Ao Bing performed his salutations, a resonance echoed within Shen Gongbao's consciousness. A radiant light curtain unfurled, revealing a stream of cascading information. Successfully accepted the innate spiritual pearl. Reincarnate Ao Bing as a disciple. The host gains a return of ice-cold power, exponentially increasing by 100,000 times, with a slight comprehension of the ice-cold laws. The host receives the return of dragon might, exponentially increasing by 100,000 times, acquiring a trace of the ancestral dragon's pressure. The host obtains a return of calamity fortune, exponentially increasing by 100,000 times, merging into a strand of innate merit, 100,000-fold enhancement. The laws of ice, the pressure of the ancestral dragon, innate merit. Shen Gongbao's system was struck with a surge of insight. Vivid images flickered before him, thousands of icy chains binding heaven and earth, the phantom of the ancestral dragon roaring into the void, challenging the 8 directions. A vast expanse of profound yellow enveloped the universe's mysteries. Hiss! Shen Gongbao inhaled deeply, steadying his mind as he suppressed the myriad visions. He then re-engaged with the rewards he had received. The concept of laws is not particularly rare in the primordial world. However, only the great Luo golden immortals can truly comprehend them. The quasi-saints merely delve deeper, while only the saints can wield such power. Yet, Shen Gongbao, despite being merely at the golden immortal realm, had gained insight through feedback ahead of time. Even with the prefix slightly, it could still be deemed an astonishing acquisition. As for the pressure of the ancestral dragon and innate merit, they were equally remarkable compared to this comprehension of laws. The ancestral dragon is the first divine dragon born of heaven and earth, inherently bearing the fortunes of the dragon clan and humanity. Since the future enshrinement of gods ultimately relies on the promotion of humanity, acquiring this trace of ancestral dragon pressure, if properly orchestrated, would place him a step ahead of all the other deities and immortals. Innate merit, a term steeped in profundity in the primordial realm, possesses extraordinary utility in cultivation, protective barriers, and the refinement of treasures and enlightenment. Even the 6 primordial saints, Taishang, Yuan Shi, Tong Tian, Jian, Zhuan Ti, and Nu Hua, when achieving the Tao of the primordial unity, meticulously planned and sought after merit. Innate merit is far more precious than ordinary postnatal merit. In the possession of Tai Shang is a treasure forged from innate merit, the exquisite treasure pagoda of heaven and earth, which stands unassailable during battle, solidifying his position as the foremost among the six saints. The intricacies of its profound nature are evident. Currently, the trace of innate merit in Shen Gongbao's possession, while not comparable to the treasure held by Tai Shang, is significant, for since the opening of the heavens, no one has been able to acquire innate merit again. At this moment, Shen Gongbao, through the act of accepting a disciple, shattered the ancient ironclad rules. This signifies not merely the boundless merits inherent in this singular act, but also the promise of even greater, extraordinary miracles that lie beyond the reach of ordinary mortals. Excellent, excellent, my dear disciple. You are born of the Spirit Pearl, with extraordinary talents. Henceforth, remember your mission, practice diligently, and do not falter. Shen Gongbao gazed at Ao Bing with great satisfaction. Rest assured, I shall heed my master's teachings. Ao Bing replied in a youthful voice, imbued with unwavering resolve. As time flowed on, several years passed in the blink of an eye. Being the reincarnation of the Spirit Pearl and the Prince of the Dragon Clan, Ao Bing's growth was, naturally, unlike that of an ordinary person. At this point, he appeared fully matured. Under Shen Gongbao's attentive gaze, Ao Bing was now in a meditative state, channeling his mystical energy. A faint, ethereal blue light enveloped him, coalescing into an almost imperceptible lotus flower. Surrounding him, misty ice crystals danced, imbued with an air of enigmatic Taoist essence, rendering the entire scene of cultivation dreamlike. Ao Bing's countenance was serene as he sat amidst the lotus. With each breath, it seemed he resonated with the cosmos. Infinite spiritual energy was drawn to him, flowing effortlessly into his being, refined into purity, and becoming a part of his magical essence. Shen Gongbao remained vigilant, acutely aware that Ao Bing had reached a critical moment of breakthrough. Hence, he divided his focus, closely monitoring his soul disciple. In Shen Gongbao's perception, every meridian and bone within Ao Bing's body had been tempered by the spiritual energy, reaching the limits of his current realm. It was evident that he had accumulated enough power, on the verge of transcending the mundane to ascend to immortality. The time for reaping the rewards of years of meticulous cultivation had finally arrived. Shen Gongbao pondered deeply. Suddenly, an overwhelming torrent of spiritual energy surged from the heavens and earth into Ao Bing's being, continuously refining and accumulating his magical power to its zenith. Crashing against the boundary of his realm, the magical energy within Ao Bing now resembled a mighty river flowing into the sea, displaying a tumultuous vigor. At this very moment, as Shen Gongbao's thought crystallized, Ao Bing's entire being radiated with an intense brilliance. The previously elusive blue lotus suddenly solidified, nearly taking on a tangible form. Ao Bing's magical power surged forth like crashing waves against the shore, creating a resonant tremor throughout. Beads of sweat trickled down Ao Bing's forehead, revealing the toll of years of rigorous trials on both his mind and body. Fortunately, all the trials were not in vain. Under Shen Gongbao's watchful eye, Ao Bing's radiance surged once more. The once elusive azure lotus has abruptly solidified, nearly materializing into a tangible form. The resplendent light emanating from within illuminates the cavern carved by Shen Gongbao, casting an unprecedented brilliance throughout. A formidable aura surges forth from Ao Bing's being, marking the true transformation from mortal to the initial stage of the celestial path, the realm of human immortal. At this moment, the system's feedback resonates within Shen Gongbao's consciousness. Congratulations to the host for cultivating the disciple Ao Bing, who has ascended to the realm of human immortal. The 10,000-fold return begins. Within his mind, celestial sounds linger. In the next instant, a torrent of surging magical power emerges from the void, pouring directly into Shen Gongbao's body. This power flows like a raging river, unceasing and relentless. In a single surge, without any delay, the initial stage of golden immortal that Shen Gongbao had been gradually perfecting is shattered, propelling him into the mid-stage of golden immortal. Subsequently, he ascends to the late stage of golden immortal, achieving full completion. Yet, this is not the conclusion. Following the attainment of full golden immortal status, the calm barrier of Tai golden immortal stands before him, which, under the onslaught of boundless magical power, shatters like fragile glass. Cracks emerge, causing Shen Gongbao's spirit to tremble profoundly. Above, the light of Tai immortal descends, merging into his primordial spirit, stirring his sea of consciousness and resonating faintly with the heavenly order. Splendid phenomena manifest, flowers raining from the heavens, golden lotuses emerging from the earth, and auspicious dragons and phoenixes heralding celestial celebrations. This is the Tai Golden Immortal. Chapter 4. Shaking the Primordial World. All the spirit pearls and demon pills are mine. The Tai Golden Immortal status is achieved in one fell swoop. Shen Gongbao senses the breakthrough within himself, his gaze contemplative, considering that the canonization has not yet occurred, and the luck of the gods has yet to fully unfold. Even the likes of the boundless Immortal Elder and Guang Qingzi have not truly reached their zenith. Their cultivation merely amounts to Tai Golden Immortal. Beyond this realm, there are merely distinctions among the early, mid, and late stages. Otherwise, with Shen Gongbao's prior Golden Immortal cultivation, he would not have had the opportunity to contend for a position among the 12 Golden Immortals. Now, by taking Ao Bing as a disciple and leveraging his breakthrough to Human Immortal for feedback, he has seamlessly traversed multiple thresholds, breaking through the bottleneck from Golden Immortal to Tai Golden Immortal, thereby equaling the likes of Guang Qingzi and others. In the past, Shen Gongbao yearned solely to ascend to the 12 Golden Immortal position in the Jade Void Palace to prove himself. Attaining Tai Golden Immortal status would naturally suffice. However, the current Shen Gongbao, having traversed time, would not be content to halt here. The saints have laid their pieces for canonization, each vying for fortune and severing the destinies of all beings. Little do they know that, entangled in the web of cause and effect, those exalted figures will also be drawn into the fray. As Shen Gongbao contemplates the impending calamity of canonization and the grand conflict among the saints, a profound glimmer of insight deepens in his gaze. Once embroiled in the game, the potential for escape becomes a tantalizing challenge. Thus, in the vastness of the primordial chaos, who shall govern the rise and fall remains uncertain. As the words fell, a radiant light shimmered above the beginner level of Saint Slaughter, authority within the system panel. An invisible luminescence enveloped Shen Gongbao's spirit, drawing him into a boundless abyss. What is this? Sensing the anomaly, Shen Gongbao's gaze flickered. Suddenly, he felt a familiar call rising. Upon closer attunement, he realized it was the ice law. With a stir of his spirit, the principles he had previously comprehended were instantly activated, transforming into a subtle current that flowed into the abyss. Initially, this current was slender, akin to a kite string, barely discernible. Yet, it did not take long for it to rapidly absorb nourishment, expanding infinitely in the blink of an eye. Amidst the rumbling vibrations, it surged forth like a torrent, stirring and shaking this vast ocean. Subsequently, it unleashed boundless ice power, freezing the ocean of laws, transforming it into a realm of crystalline ice. Each crystal harbored the essence of the heavenly Tao. By observing with an open heart, Shen Gongbao could perceive countless profound insights pouring into his consciousness. I am touching upon the convergence of the heavenly Tao, facing the essence of enlightenment. Shen Gongbao thoroughly understood his predicament. He could not ascertain how much time had passed when he suddenly sensed a series of intense auras descending with great force. They swept back and forth above this primordial sea, seemingly in search of something. In the blink of an eye, they were nearing Shen Gongbao's location. Such a presence could only belong to saints. Now was not the time to confront them. He must retreat. With a thought, he immediately sank his spirit, returning to his original form in an instant. Upon looking at the system again, the ice law had progressed from slight comprehension to initial glimpse of understanding. Just as Shen Gongbao was contemplating his own achievements on the vast land of the primordial world, beneath the ginseng fruit tree in Wuzhuang Temple on Mount Wanshou, the ancestor of the Earth Immortals, Zenyuanzi, suddenly opened his eyes. As a pinnacle existence at the quasi-saint level, Zenyuanzi once stood alongside the three pure ones and the two saints of Nuwa. His sensitivity to changes in the heavenly Tao was naturally acute. Now, with just a single thought, he sensed that the intricate patterns of the primordial world, which were originally chaotic yet somewhat orderly, had become utterly disordered. With the saints now manifesting, their overwhelming presence loomed over the primordial universe. At this moment, what force could disturb the heavenly mechanisms? Zenyuanzi furrowed his brow, sensing the gleaming earth book in his hand, within which flowed countless images of sentient beings, yet he could not decipher its meaning. Alongside Zenyuanzi, similar sensations were felt in the netherworld, within the endless blood sea of the river Styx, hidden within unknown mountains and wilds, by the former leader of the myriad demons, Bays, as well as by the numerous gods and saints who had survived the calamities of the witch and demon era. Even in the depths of the underworld's 6 paths of reincarnation, a subtle ripple of reincarnation now stirs. Beyond the heavens, within the profound chaos of the Zixiao Palace, the venerable figures of the primordial origin, Tongtian, Jian, Zhuanti, Inhua, and the 6 saints have gathered to deliberate upon the divine ranking. At this moment, their contentious debates have abruptly ceased, their expressions transforming in unison. For in this very instant, they all have sensed an extraordinary occurrence. The source of the heavenly Tao has coalesced, suddenly stirred by tumultuous waves that emerge from the void. The forces of various laws intertwine, clashing like a tempestuous tide. The celestial mechanics, already obscured by the impending calamity, are now thoroughly entangled in chaos. What has transpired? What event in the primordial realm could so disturb the heavenly secrets? As Tong Tian's countenance shifted dramatically, a clear and melodic sword chant resonated through the void. A magnificent sword aura flickered in and out of existence, momentarily piercing through the chaos and connecting with the boundless ocean of converging laws. The sword serves as an eye, seeking to comprehend the cosmos. Beside him, the other saints exchanged knowing glances, each sensing the peculiarity of the moment. They then silently focused their divine spirits, attempting to discern the underlying truths. The Bodhi tree, the Taiji diagram, the primordial auspicious clouds. Each treasured manifestation illuminated the void, stirring the spiritual essence. Like the Qingping sword, they sought to imprint the entirety of this primordial realm into the hearts of the saints. Yet, despite their various endeavors, all ultimately proved futile. It seemed as though their initial insights were mere illusions. Yet, that could not possibly be the case. The true spirits of the saints, entrusted to the laws, are acutely sensitive to the fluctuations of the heavenly Tao. Where there is sensation, there must be a cause. Yet, we remain unable to grasp it clearly. Is this impending calamity truly so perilous? Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, Hongjun grasped the creation jade plate, allowing the 3,000 laws to flow within. As purple chi ebbed and flowed, transforming 3,000 worlds within a mere span, his countenance revealed an unprecedented gravitas. Is this uncertainty a natural consequence of the situation? Or is there someone deliberately challenging me? The saint's turmoil, at present, does not sway the primordial realm. As Shen Gongbao, reaping the rewards of his recent enlightenment, contemplated his next course of action, he suddenly sensed a surge of intense heat within his spiritual awareness. This aura was triggered by the spiritual talisman he had previously set at Chintang Pass. After stealthily substituting the spiritual pearl with the demon pill, he did not simply abandon Chintang Pass. Instead, he left a spiritual talisman to monitor the movements of the demon pill. Thus, as the fervent aura intensified in his mind, Shen Gongbao realized that the demon child Nezha was about to descend into the world. The spiritual pearl and the demon pill were one and the same. The arrival of the demon child would surely herald a grand occasion for me to accept disciples. After Ao being fused with the spiritual pearl, his innate talents soared, progressing rapidly in his cultivation, and the returns for Shen Gongbao have been nothing short of delightful. Thus, in terms of innate talent, Nezha is hardly inferior to Ao Bing. How could Shen Gongbao allow him to follow the predetermined fate and become a disciple of Tai Jinren? Only one disciple? Absurd. Such choices are for children. Shen Gongbao desires them all. Chapter 5. Seizing Tai Jinren, accepting Nezha as a disciple. At this moment, chaos reigned in Chintang Pass. A monster. Lady Li has birthed a monster. Run for your lives. Amidst the clamorous cries of panic, a fireball wreaked havoc within Chintang Pass. The demonic flames surged, reaching heights unimaginable. Wherever it passed, pavilions and towers were reduced to mere ashes. Even the earth could not withstand such searing heat. Fissures and charred scars spread across the ground, extending for more than 10 zhang. Li Jing gazed upon this scene, utterly bereft of tears. It was said that his son was the reincarnation of a spiritual pearl, destined to slay demons and accumulate merit, ultimately ascending to immortality. How had it come to this? As Li Jing pondered how to resolve this calamity, unbeknownst to him, numerous strands of divine consciousness swept through the void, sensing the chaos unleashed by the demonic child in Chintang Pass. These presences, shrouded in profundity and evidently of considerable cultivation, remained silent despite witnessing the havoc wrought by the demonic child. Clearly, they harbored their own ulterior motives. At Jinyang Cave on Qianyuan Mountain, Tai Jinren, sensing the turmoil, felt a jolt of apprehension. How could this be? When had the spiritual pearl been stolen? The Nezha, destined to be the reincarnation of the spiritual pearl, had transformed into a demonic child? Recalling his mission from Yuanshi Tianzuan to bring the spiritual pearl and the demonic pill to Chintang Pass and find the destined one, Li Jing and his wife, to use their unborn child as the reincarnation of the spiritual pearl, all to lay the groundwork for the future battle of deification and assist in the grand ambitions of the Chan Sect. Everything had been meticulously arranged, seemingly foolproof. Yet suddenly, the situation had unraveled. The spiritual pearl vanished, and a demonic child was born. Who was behind this conspiracy? Tai Jinren's hand, which held the whisk, fell in an instant. Cold sweat drenched his Taoist robe, and his eyes turned bloodshot, filled with crimson. Amidst the swirling thoughts, he suddenly realized that now was not the time to question who conspired against him. The priority was to resolve the immediate crisis. How to resolve it? After much contemplation, he made a decisive choice. Since the master was absent, he would simply declare the demonic child to be the spiritual pearl. He only needed to conceal the truth for a time. Once the deification was concluded, who would dare to challenge him? The 12th golden immortal appointed by the celestial master of Yushu Palace? With this thought firmly established, Tai Jinren resolved to act. Regardless of whether it is the spirit pearl or the demon pill, both were conceived by the master, making me a warrior and enforcer in the grand design of teaching and bestowing divinity. As long as I can successfully achieve this objective, the distinction between Nezha being the spirit pearl or the demon pill becomes rather inconsequential. Taiji Jinren pondered this and gradually calmed himself. Provided that no one deliberately exposes the underlying issues, guiding the demon pill to successfully pass the assessment could still be considered a merit, thereby allowing me to ascend to the esteemed rank of the 12 golden immortals. Subsequently, I shall acquire the rightful merits within the annals of divinity. Time is of the essence. In a fleeting thought, Taiji Jinren set forth. However, midway through his ethereal journey, his expression abruptly shifted. He suddenly felt a surge of intuition. Could there be some unforeseen developments? With a flicker of focus, Taiji Jinren silently harnessed his primordial spirit to calculate the threads of fate. The result was alarming. Upon realization, he gasped in astonishment. What? Someone dares to preemptively take Nezha as a disciple? Who possesses such audacity to intercept my opportunity? His urgency escalated. Forgetting all else, he commanded the 9-dragon divine fire cover, transforming into a beam of golden light, surging fiercely towards Chintang Pass. In the East Sea, Shen Gongbao, ever vigilant, sensed the arrival of the demon child and knew there was no time to waste. He immediately rose and hastened to Chintang Pass. The sentiment remained unchanged. Nezha was indeed a prodigy, his talents not in the slightest inferior to Ao Bing's. With Ao Bing's breakthrough, he had propelled Shen Gongbao from the realm of golden immortals to the domain of Taiji golden immortals. To speak of the advantages, it spared him centuries of arduous cultivation. If he were to take the demon pill as a disciple, with both the spirit pearl and the demon pill working in unison, would not Shen Gongbao's cultivation soar at an extraordinary pace? Moreover, even aside from such benefits, the spirit pearl and the demon pill were originally one entity, formed from fragments of an extraordinary treasure. The primordial supreme being had painstakingly separated them, intending to utilize this action to catalyze the bestowal of divinity. How could I allow the demon child to wander aimlessly outside? Shen Gongbao, swift as lightning, traversed the distance between the East Sea and Chintang Pass with remarkable speed. Before long, he had arrived. The fierce aura of the demon child wafted with the wind. The celestial sound of his mind flickered, detecting an innate spiritual body. Should the host take him under their wing, an extraordinary return shall be granted. Shen Gongbao fixed his gaze upon the demon child, his thoughts momentarily stirring. After a brief contemplation, he shifted his attention to the beleaguered couple, Li Jing and his wife. Without concealment, he instantly manifested before them. Who goes there? Chintang Pass was the front line against the demons, and now, amidst such chaos, the vigilance of the people was at its peak. Upon witnessing Shen Gongbao's sudden appearance, they all tensed, brandishing their weapons in defense. Observing their demeanor, a spark of lightning flickered in Shen Gongbao's eyes. The crackling electric serpent writhed, effortlessly pulling the weapons from their hands and sending them crashing aside. This display left everyone astonished, transforming their initial vigilance into sheer panic. Li Jing and his wife stood before the crowd, and despite their inner turmoil, they maintained their composure and inquired, in the midst of this chaos, "We have acted without decorum and have inadvertently offended the Taoist. We ask for your forgiveness." Shen Gongbao scanned Li Jing and Madame Yin, noticing the cautious expressions on their faces. Unfazed, he simply shook his head and replied, "No harm done. I am not one to hold petty grudges." Li Jing exhaled in relief and bowed in gratitude, then asked, "May I inquire about the destination of the celestial being? Is there a matter that brings you to our Chintang Pass? If there is anything we can assist with, please do not hesitate to let us know, and we shall comply without question." Despite Li Jing's polite demeanor, he was inwardly eager to dismiss this unwelcome guest promptly. hoping to retrieve Nezha and alleviate the unwarranted calamity befalling the military and civilians of Chintang Pass. To his surprise, Shen Gongbao responded directly, "You are quite considerate. In fact, I have a matter that only you two can resolve. Your son shares a bond of master and disciple with me, and I have come to settle this connection." Li Jing and Madame Yin were utterly taken aback by Shen Gongbao's words. "What? You wish to take my son as your disciple? Surely, you must be mistaken. My two sons already have their own masters," they exclaimed. Shen Gongbao shook his head and clarified, "I am not referring to Jin Jia or Mu Jia, but rather your son Nezha." At that moment, Li Jing's fists clenched tightly, veins bulging with tension, while Madame Yin staggered back a step, nearly losing her balance. They stared at Shen Gongbao in shock, not for any trivial reason, but because the demon child was still wreaking havoc at Chintang Pass, and now Shen Gongbao had appeared, claiming he wished to take on a disciple. A terrifying thought flashed through the couple's minds. Could this individual be some malevolent sorcerer? Would this not endanger Chintang Pass? Chapter 6. The body transcends the world. Like a divine presence descending, Li Jing and Madame Yin regarded Shen Gongbao with suspicion, contemplating whether he might be a sinister figure. Though he exuded an aura of pure energy, unmistakably indicative of a high Taoist, such a presence could be feigned. Having long defended Chintang Pass, they were well versed in the tricks of demons and spirits, and thus were not easily swayed by Shen Gongbao's seemingly unfounded assertions. Shen Gongbao, perceiving their doubts with a mere glance, calmly remarked, "I understand your concerns. You believe that Nezha's behavior resembles that of a demon more than that of a child. Yet, despite witnessing this, I still approach with the intent to take him as my disciple, which surely cannot be the act of a malevolent sorcerer." The couple's skepticism toward Shen Gongbao was, in their minds, entirely justified. At this moment, the depths of his thoughts were laid bare by Shen Gongbao's piercing gaze. Even as Shen remained calm and subtly pointed this out, a sense of unease crept into his heart. However, despite this internal turmoil, their pale visages reflected an unwavering resolve. They could not, in good conscience, allow Nezha to apprentice under Shen Gongbao without clarifying their concerns. Thus, they steeled themselves, gritting their teeth in obstinacy. "Very well. I shall dispense with the theatrics and speak plainly. I am Shen Gongbao, a disciple of the Chan teaching," he declared. The mention of his name and affiliation ignited a spark of recognition in Li Jing's eyes. The military and civilians of Chintang Pass collectively exhaled in relief. As long as he is not a nefarious entity, all is well. It turns out he is a revered disciple of the Chan teachings. This Taoist is not a villain. That is truly fortuitous. Otherwise, we would face certain doom, they mused. Although the young master exhibited some oddities, he was not of a demonic ilk, blessed by the heavens. Li Jing, feeling reassured, prepared to pay his respects. Yet, Lady Yin suddenly grasped his arm. Taking a deep breath, she fixed her gaze upon Shen Gongbao and inquired, "You claim to be a disciple of the Chan teachings, but do you possess any proof?" While conversing with Li Jing and the others, Shen Gongbao had been observing Nezha, who wreaked havoc in Chintang Pass. The infernal flames he conjured consumed everything in their path, reducing homes to rubble and splitting the earth asunder. Even the subterranean water veins were evaporated into mist, subsequently scorched dry, transforming into unbearable waves of searing heat that swept through the land. Shen's satisfaction swelled within him. However, upon hearing Lady Yin's audacious challenge to his identity, he turned to her, lightning brewing in his gaze. "Madam, do you still harbor doubts regarding my identity?" The flash of his eyes sent a chill through Lady Yin, yet her maternal love compelled her to persist. "I mean no offense. I merely ask for some form of verification." Observing her demeanor, Shen Gongbao felt a stirring within and nodded inwardly. His intention to take Nezha as his apprentice was rooted in the boy's extraordinary heritage, being born of the magical orb and sharing an origin with Ao Bing, the reincarnation of the spirit pearl. Nezha's innate talents surpassed those of ordinary beings, promising rapid advancement in his cultivation, which would yield great benefits for Shen. However, Li Jing and his wife, particularly Lady Yin, exhibited an instinctual protective love for Nezha, a fact that intrigued Shen. By accepting Nezha as his disciple, he could leverage the boy's potential to influence the entire Chintang Pass, positioning himself strategically in the unfolding saga of humanity and the divine. Thus, the more resolute Lady Yin became, the more satisfaction Shen Gongbao derived from her tenacity, feeling no hint of annoyance. He then proclaimed, "In that case, please observe closely." With that, he summoned the Chan teaching's ascension order into his hand. Harnessing the primordial spirit, a fleeting spark of the original sacred might was summoned, merging with one's own magical power to unleash a tremendous force. Boom! An invisible tidal wave surged forth, sweeping across the expanse with overwhelming ferocity. Li Jing and Lady Yin found themselves at the forefront, momentarily engulfed in darkness. Yet, it was not a loss of consciousness, but rather the sensation that the very skies, the earth, and all that existed were entirely overshadowed by the violently expanding figure of Shen Gongbao. It was a presence greater than mountains, broader than oceans, a manifestation that evoked an innate terror beyond mortal comprehension. All witnesses bore the crushing weight of dread, akin to the ultimate fear experienced by ants confronted with celestial might. Such an encounter was unfathomable without direct experience. What formidable cultivation does this being possess? Li Jing, sensing the overwhelming divine pressure, felt his heart race in terror. Should this entity harbor even the slightest malevolence, it seemed inevitable that they would meet a gruesome fate today. The soldiers and civilians of Chintang Pass, equally stricken with fear, struggled to convey their silent pleas to Shen Gongbao through their gaze. Lady Yin, who had initially requested Shen Gongbao to display his credentials, never anticipated such a violent demonstration of power. Gazing upon the figure wielding the Ascension Order, radiating an aura that filled the heavens and earth, even the resilient Lady Yin could not help but ponder. We are indeed like ants grasped within the palm of a giant, our lives hanging by a mere thought. Should this being tighten his grip, we would surely be crushed to dust, our souls extinguished, with reincarnation becoming a distant fantasy. Shen Gongbao observed the terrified crowd, their bodies trembling and swaying, and gradually reigned in his overwhelming presence. Simultaneously, he buried the restless primordial might within the Ascension Order. Such a feat had previously eluded Shen Gongbao, but after the encounter with Sidu Shui, he had gained a more nuanced understanding of the latent power within the Ascension Order. The subtleties of this comprehension allowed him to skillfully manipulate the primordial might at will, blending it with his own aura to create an invisible shockwave that pressed upon his adversaries. The might of a sage is truly vast. Even though Shen Gongbao merely tapped into a fraction of that power, integrating it with his own, the restrained release was sufficient to render the vicinity of Chintang Pass utterly silent. Despite Shen Gongbao having fully subdued his aura, the soldiers and civilians, led by Li Jing and his wife, remained frozen in fear, incapacitated by the residual terror. They were still engulfed in dread, unable to grasp that Shen Gongbao had withdrawn his display of might. Although Li Jing and Lady Yin did not possess particularly high cultivation, they were profoundly affected by the overwhelming force. However, having long guarded the border at Chintang Pass, they have grown accustomed to the turmoil of demons and the bloody carnage of battles between humans and monsters. Their resolute nature is not something ordinary beings can compare to. Even a great Luo golden immortal, relying solely on oppressive might, may not easily plunge them into a state of hollow bewilderment. Thus, it is evident that my earlier conjecture was not unfounded. Such methods can indeed be employed at a critical moment to instill fear in the hearts of adversaries and create opportunities for victory. A fleeting thought crossed my mind as I gazed upon the bewildered Li Jing and his wife. Shen Gongbao no longer restrained his spirit and uttered in a commanding tone, "Awaken." Chapter 7. Unexpected twist. Shen Gongbao's voice was not particularly loud, yet at this moment, it resonated like a thunderclap in the minds of the dazed Li Jing and Lady Yin. It reverberated through their consciousness, akin to the sudden awakening from an overwhelming stupor, rekindling their lost awareness. Reflecting on the recent events, Li Jing and his wife could not help but draw in a sharp breath. Their gazes towards Shen Gongbao brimmed with both fear and reverence. They quickly bowed deeply, expressing their sincere apologies. "We were ignorant and dared to question the esteemed Taoist. For any offense caused, we humbly ask for your forgiveness." Observing their expressions, Shen Gongbao gently gestured with his hand and replied calmly, "No harm done. I am not one to hold grudges." Upon hearing this, Li Jing and Lady Yin bowed once more, expressing their gratitude. "Thank you, esteemed immortal." As they spoke, their hearts echoed with thoughts of the overwhelming pressure they had just experienced, akin to the vast might of heaven itself, as if a sage had descended, leaving no room for resistance. Even the much-lauded Taizhenren, who was to ascend among the 12 golden immortals, paled in comparison. Lost in contemplation, they were suddenly jolted by a piercing roar that reverberated throughout Chintang Pass. It was Nezha, his spirit overtaken by demonic influence, wreaking havoc. The agony in his voice suggested a nascent awakening of his true essence. Yet he found himself unable to break free from the grip of malevolence, leading to a soul-rending conflict within. Ajar. Upon hearing Nezha's anguished cries, Lady Yin disregarded everything else and hastily bowed to Shen Gongbao, pleading with a sorrowful tone, I beseech you, esteemed Taoist, to show mercy and swiftly aid Nezha in subduing the demonic influence. Shen Gongbao nodded slightly at the couple's entreaties. There is no need for further words. Since I have come here to take Nezha as my disciple, I shall not stand idly by while he is manipulated by demonic forces, wreaking havoc upon the populace. Even without your request, I would intervene to suppress him and awaken his true essence. Shen Gongbao was acutely aware of Nezha's suffering and instantly discerned the underlying issue. The demonic orb was unlike the spiritual pearl. Upon descending into the world, it inherently contained a lethal aura of calamity. Having just arrived, Nezha, lacking any mastery of the Tao, was utterly incapable of suppressing it. Should this continue unchecked, there was a grave risk that the nascent essence cultivated over 3 years would be utterly annihilated. Shen Gongbao's expression was grave. Beside him, Li Jing and Lady Yin bowed deeply, simultaneously promising, "Thank you, esteemed master. As soon as Nezha's spirit is awakened, we shall certainly have him pay homage to you and diligently pursue the path of enlightenment under your guidance." In response to their words, Shen Gongbao merely nodded, offering little further acknowledgement. It was a matter of certainty. Since he had arrived here, he would undoubtedly accept Nezha as his disciple. The willingness of Li Jing and his wife to have Nezha study under him was certainly commendable. However, should they stubbornly cling to the crooked tree of Tai Junren, refusing to permit Nezha to join Shen Gongbao's tutelage, he would not tolerate such obstinacy. In other words, the declarations of Lady Yin and Li Jing held little significance for Shen Gongbao. Moreover, the destruction wrought by Nezha upon Chintang Pass was already immense. This was not a time for idle pleasantries. That was a critical reason as well. With Ao Bing in tow, having bound the Dragon Clan to his chariot, capturing Nezha could also serve as a strategic point to infiltrate the human realm. Shen Gongbao focused on Nezha's demonic flames, channeling his powers to conjure a net of lightning, which tore through the void and formed a celestial trap to ensnare Nezha. At that moment, Nezha was dominated by his demonic nature, engulfed in flames that ravaged Chintang Pass. Wherever he went, everything was incinerated, and even the very earth could scarcely endure the scorching heat, revealing countless fissures. More terrifying still, even the subterranean water veins were affected. Were it not for the East Sea lying beyond Chintang Pass, with the underground water veins connecting to the boundless ocean, Chintang Pass would undoubtedly become a desolate wasteland of perpetual drought. Yet, even so, the demonic essence was not entirely oblivious. Upon sensing Shen Gongbao's boundless thunder, which formed a celestial net aimed at restraining him, the demonic nature, feeling threatened, instantly became enraged. Without a moment's hesitation, it abandoned its rampage in other directions and locked its sights on Shen Gongbao, charging towards him with ferocity. The heat had not yet arrived, but the scorching waves surged forth. The void trembled under such terrifying incandescence, presenting a scene that was utterly fragmented and distorted. Li Jing, Lady Yin, and others, who stood beside Shen Gongbao, could hardly withstand the impending flames. One by one, they were forced to retreat. Many, caught off guard, found flames beginning to sprout from their bodies. Observing this chaotic spectacle, Shen Gongbao did not stand idly by as they faced incineration. With a mere gesture of his hand, he swiftly captured the pervasive, intangible heat wave, seizing it within his grasp. What a formidable demonic orb! However, Chintang Pass is a crucial frontier of humanity, guarded by formidable military forces. It serves as an important fulcrum in my strategic plans and must not be allowed to fall into ruin. Observing Nezha, who is now utterly consumed by demonic influence and has lost all semblance of his former self, it is remarkable that he can still unleash such formidable power driven solely by instinct. Shen Gongbao is exceedingly pleased. If such force can be wielded through instinct alone, one can only imagine the cataclysmic devastation he could wreak upon mastering his craft, a terrifying prospect that might even rend the fabric of time and space itself. As Shen Gongbao contemplates this, his expression remains impassive, though a flicker of delight stirs within him. After all, he possesses a feedback system. Every achievement of his disciple translates into a 10,000-fold benefit for him. The existence born of Nezha's innate spiritual essence, like the demonic orb, could yield an astonishing 100,000-fold return. The more powerful his disciple becomes, the greater the rewards for Shen Gongbao. Thus, lost in visions of his future bountiful gains, how could he not feel elated? Without further ado, Shen Gongbao swiftly clenches his fingers, grasping the scorching waves of heat that swirl around him. He then channels his energy, compressing the electric net of heaven and earth with great haste, forming a cage intended to ensnare Nezha. However, As the net closes in around him, a barrier of spiritual energy suddenly manifests, creating a shroud that separates Nezha and Shen powers into distinct realms. Shen gazes at the barrier that has arisen in the air, obstructing his magical energy. The thunderous net crashes into it, merely sending ripples across its surface. Clearly, it is far from being breached. Observing this, Shen is not particularly surprised. He shifts his gaze to the earth below. Earlier, as he wielded his powers, he sensed an unusual presence lurking deep beneath the ground, leading to his suspicions. Indeed, it seems complications have arisen. In that moment of Shen scrutiny, two peculiar voices suddenly resonate from the depths of the earth, urgently proclaiming, "What kind of fiend dares to disturb the arrangement that the true man has made for Nezha at this time?" Chapter 8. Who dares to stand in my way? What kind of fiend dares to disturb? The voices echo from below, initially muffled but quickly clarifying into distinct sounds. Yet, they carry little warmth, resembling the coldness of metal or stone, imbued with an innate harshness. Upon hearing these voices, Shen remains impassive. However, beside him, Li Jing and Madame Yin both startle simultaneously, for they recognize the source of the voices. The barrier beast. Madame Yin exclaims in astonishment. "You." Li Jing gazes at the two diminutive entities, seemingly animated bronze statues, momentarily rendered speechless. Nezha is a reincarnation personally bestowed by the true man, destined for enlightenment by the primordial heavenly sovereign, and has a master-disciple bond with him. Now that the true man is absent, none of you may claim Nezha as your disciple. The barrier beast, though not particularly imposing in stature, resembled a mere puppet. Yet at this moment, an individual wielding a long spear manifested divine powers to counter the oppressive magic of Nezha, who was succumbing to his demonic nature. The sound reverberated, harsh yet astonishingly thunderous. Had their forms remained concealed, and one were to rely solely on the auditory experience, it would be easy to mistake them for two towering giants, whose voices resounded through the heavens and the earth. Listening to the words of the barrier beast, Madame Yin was certainly aware of the true identity of the so-called real master. A wave of excitement coursed through her, accompanied by an inexorable surge of resentment that welled up from the depths of her heart. How detestable! So you have been lurking all along. Without comparison, there can be no pain. Initially, she had believed that the real master had departed without any contingency plan, and thus had not given it much thought. But now, it was clear that he had indeed made arrangements, deliberately choosing not to respond, and allowing Nezha to suffer in despair. As Shen Gongbao intervened, they hastily rushed to impede him. Madame Yin pondered Nezha's anguished cries, reflecting on the unwarranted calamity faced by the soldiers and citizens of Chintang Pass. She clenched her teeth in frustration. Given this, why did you not emerge sooner to suppress Nezha when he lost control? Why permit him to wreak havoc upon my people in their time of suffering? Just as Madame Yin's thoughts swirled with various emotions, Shen Gongbao addressed the two barrier beasts that had united to sever the connection between the inner and outer realms, declaring, "Barrier beast, do you dare obstruct me?" His voice betrayed no emotion, as if his heart remained undisturbed by the appearance of the barrier beasts. Yet this cold, unfeeling tone exuded an inexplicable sense of oppression. Even the two barrier beasts, confined within their own barrier, felt an involuntary chill creep into their hearts, as though they were being scrutinized by Shen Gongbao, causing their iron-like forms to stiffen slightly. When had Shen Gongbao become so formidable? One of the barrier beasts remarked. The other, unable to contain its sentiments, chimed in. "I feel utterly uncomfortable right now." However, despite their discomfort, they exhibited remarkable resilience. Even in the face of Shen Gongbao's terrifying presence, there was no sign of retreat. "Shen Gongbao, you shall not take Nezha. As long as we are here, no one shall take Nezha," the barrier beasts asserted. Exchanging words with determination, the barrier above them shimmered, a radiant flow of light that simultaneously severed the connection between the inner and outer realms, embodying an ancient and unshakable solidity. Upon hearing their declaration, Shen Gongbao's gaze turned frigid. "You think you can impede my intentions with your meager strength?" As he spoke, countless bolts of lightning coalesced in his eyes with each breath he took. In a moment of spontaneous incantation, reality is transformed. The razor dances wildly, traversing the heavens and the earth. In this instant, the violent power seems to pierce through the fabric of time and space. Waves of azure lightning envelop the entire barrier, creating a cacophony of explosive sounds that intertwine in a chaotic symphony. The relentless thunder reverberates, causing even the very foundations of Chintang Pass to tremble. The scorching aftermath of the lightning's rupture in the void gives the impression that the world itself is becoming singed. The barrier, sustained by the guardian beasts, initially holds firm against the onslaught. However, as moments pass, merely a few breaths, the two beasts begin to sense their waning strength. Our magical energy is dissipating too rapidly. I cannot endure much longer. They lament, seemingly alerting some other presence of their dire situation. Within the barrier, the demon child, already in a state of rampage, is further agitated by the tremors of the barrier. The thunderous roar of the hellish tempest conjured by Shen Gongbao reverberates, affecting him as well. Thus, the demon child, transformed from Nezha, glares furiously, unleashing a torrent of flames without hesitation, surging towards Shen Gongbao. Initially, the barrier obstructs this fiery advance. Yet, the two guardian beasts, besieged by Shen Gongbao's relentless assault, find their resistance crumbling within mere breaths. With the added ferocity of the demon child's flames, any semblance of defense becomes a farce. It is about to shatter. The guardian beasts cry out. In the next instant, the radiant curtain of the barrier shatters like fragile glass, scattering into countless shards. However, the sound of its destruction pales in comparison to the overwhelming chaos, as the entire realm is dominated by the tempest of Shen Gongbao's lightning and the demon child's flames. Beside Shen Gongbao, Li Jing and his wife watch in horror as the inferno surges towards them, the heat so intense it threatens to reduce their bodies to mere husks. Alarmed and enraged, they call out, "Beware, Taoist!" Yet, Shen Gongbao merely shakes his head, dismissing the threat. What can mere flames do to me? With that, he exhales deeply, causing the air to swirl and disturb the energies around him. In an instant, a wave of icy chill manifests, expanding outward, the further it moves from him. The more it amplifies, ultimately coalescing into a vast river of crystalline ice stretching across the horizon. Unfazed by the oncoming inferno, he charges directly into it. The clash of ice and fire produces a hissing sound, shrouding the scene in a thick fog. Yet, this mist does not spread far. It is swiftly frozen by Shen Gongbao's magical energy, becoming increasingly effective with each passing moment. In the end, what he had frozen was no longer merely the spiritual energy enveloped by his own magical power. Even the boundless demonic flames were ensnared within. Despite the raging fire clashing violently, it remained utterly constrained. Nezha, still unawakened. Under the pervasive chill, the demonic flames were gradually compressed, returning to Nezha's body. Upon witnessing this, Shen Gongbao wasted no time and called out, "Nezha, awaken swiftly." However, it was precisely at this moment that a murderous intent surged from the horizon, enveloping Shen Gongbao and Chintang Pass in an instant. Accompanying this was the frigid voice of Tai Jinren. "Shen Gongbao, do you dare to contend with me?" Chapter 9. The arrogance of Tai. The voice was icy, and the murderous aura surged fiercely. Yet, it was devoid of any caution, appearing rather as a blend of rage and contempt. Indeed, Tai Jinren had sensed the recent upheavals at Chintang Pass and detected an attempt to usurp his fortune, which filled him with both anger and alarm. Without regard for anything else, he manifested his escape light and raced towards Chintang Pass. Just as Shen Gongbao was employing his icy magical power to suppress Nezha's demonic flames and awaken his spirit, Tai Jinren arrived. Upon hearing the voice, Shen Gongbao did not relent in his suppression of Nezha's power. He merely turned to face the streak of light that soared across the heavens. In an instant, he ascended into the air, blocking Tai Jinren's path. Within Chintang Pass, Li Jing and his wife, along with the other soldiers and civilians, had been watching with astonished delight as Shen Gongbao managed to restrain Nezha's demonic flames, believing that this unforeseen calamity was finally coming to an end. However, they did not anticipate that Shen Gongbao would suddenly ascend into the sky midway through his task, leaving them in shock. They quickly looked up and noticed a fiery streak of light rapidly piercing the air. As they beheld the escape light, they could sense a chilling aura swirling within it, causing them to gasp in alarm. This was dire. After enduring so much to have Shen Gongbao subdue the demonic flames, how could another surge of fire appear? Could it be that a fiend had secretly exchanged the spirit pearl for a demonic orb? Fear and concern gripped the hearts of the once relieved crowd, plunging them back into chaos and uncertainty. Li Jing and his wife exchanged glances, each reading unwavering resolve in the other's eyes. No matter what, they would protect their child. Fortunately, though the escape light was swift, it did not charge directly towards Chintang Pass. Sensing Shen Gongbao hovering in midair, obstructing its path, it too came to a halt, revealing the figure concealed beneath the flames. Li Jing and his wife may not have been exceptionally powerful, but they were far from ordinary. As the shimmering light of the escape technique settled, they focused their gaze and immediately recognized the figure before them. It is the esteemed Tai Jinren. Tai Jinren has also arrived. With this thought, the two hastily prepared to instruct the others to tidy up and arrange a feast to welcome the duo of Shen Gongbao and Tai Jinren. However, before they could utter a word, they suddenly sensed something amiss. How could it be that Shen Gongbao was confronting Tai Jinren? In midair, Shen Gongbao exuded an imposing aura, commanding the light of escape, while he spoke with utmost disdain towards Tai Jinren. His gaze bore no trace of the fear that one might expect from being caught red-handed. Shen Gongbao, Tai Jinren's heart surged with murderous intent as he beheld the figure standing before him. The animosity and conflict between them had a long and turbulent history. In the days before Yuan Shi Tianzuan had spoken, they had clashed numerous times in their pursuit of the final title of the 12 Golden Immortals of the Yushu Palace. Now that it seemed Yuan Shi had finally spoken, Tai Jinren had believed all was secure. Yet, he was taken aback to find Shen Gongbao still unyielding, returning to entangle him once more. In a fit of fury and astonishment, he rebuked. The master has already designated me as the final ascendant to the 12 Golden Immortals of Yushu Palace. What, Shen Gongbao, are you still not resigned to your fate? Such rebellion, do you not fear the master's retribution? Upon hearing Tai Jinren's words, Shen Gongbao's thoughts stirred momentarily. Yuan Shi Tianzuan, the power of the sage is immeasurable. Without proof of the primordial chaos, one is but an insect. The pressure exerted by Yuan Shi Tianzuan was no mere boast, even though he only heard it from Tai Jinren. Shen Gongbao felt a fleeting impulse. Yet, any sense of fear was utterly unfathomable. From the moment he resolved to take action, he had clarified his path. He would not simply be a docile disciple of the Chan teaching. Shen Gongbao, once diligent and wholeheartedly obedient to the teachings, ultimately found himself relegated to the burdensome task of becoming the General of Waters in the East Sea. Since he had made his appearance, it would be sheer folly to remain a compliant subject. The sealing of the gods was a perilous ordeal for immortals, its brutality requiring no elaboration. However, within the chaos of the killing tribulations, the heavenly secrets were in turmoil. The various sages had distanced themselves from the primal chaos, congregating in the Zixiao Palace to deliberate on the sealing list. This was precisely the moment when the Great Tao's 50 transformations began to manifest their power. Those with ambition should seize this window of opportunity to strategize. As a time transcender, Shen Gongbao was all too aware of this. Thus, after a brief stir of thought, he quelled the ripples in his heart, and, gazing at Tai Jinren, he coldly remarked, Tai, do you think you can use the master to intimidate me? Do you think you are worthy? Tai Jinren had initially believed that Shen Gongbao was merely acting out of desperation after suffering a defeat. Thus, attempting to covertly seize his own opportunities, he has now arrived. He boldly invokes the name of the primordial supreme being. Consequently, the thief should be trembling in fear and begging for mercy. However, to everyone's surprise, Shen Gongbao exhibits no trace of fear. Instead, he retorts coldly, mocking him. The situation is utterly absurd. Tai Jinren gazes at Shen Gongbao with a chilling intensity, his aura swelling as his robes billow dramatically. Shen Gongbao, I initially thought it was merely my illusion, but it seems you have indeed changed somewhat. As he spoke, his gaze swept across Chintang Pass, landing particularly on the icy barrier that contained Nezha's demonic flames. With a disdainful snort, he exhaled 2 breaths. By what right? Tai Jinren inquired of Shen Gongbao. Yet this question required no response from Shen Gongbao. For Tai Jinren continued speaking to himself. Is it merely because of your newfound mastery of this icy divine technique, learned from an unknown source? Regardless, as a direct disciple of the Yushu Palace, my experiences cannot be compared to the ordinary. With just a glance, I can discern that the ice you use to freeze Nezha's demonic flames deviates from common icy sorcery. Even having observed this, he did not attach much importance to it. His gaze remained predominantly one of scorn towards Shen Gongbao. Do you realize where your absurdity lies? He asked, prompting Shen Gongbao to look at him, awaiting further elaboration. Humph. You, a wretched creature born of a damp egg, have already attained immense fortune by entering my Chan teaching. Yet, instead of diligently cultivating the Tao to seek transcendence and freedom, you are consumed by greed, coveting the esteemed position of the 12 Golden Immortals of Yushu Palace. As he spoke, Tai Jinren flicked the dust whisk in his hand, seemingly attempting to dispel the foul stench of the demonic race that had tainted his pure aura. His voice grew louder, evidently fueled by anger, as he continued, Now, when confronted with my inquiries, you remain unrepentant and dare to resist. Do you truly believe that your meager abilities, learned from who knows where, can stand against me? Chapter 10. 3 sentences that break Tai's resolve. Tai Junren's body radiated the blazing true fire of samadhi, intense and domineering. It rivaled Nezha's demonic flames without a hint of inferiority. Amidst the flickering flames, his hair and beard danced wildly as he wielded the dust whisk with a light sweep. Every gesture and word was saturated with contempt for Shen Gongbao. A creature like you has already exhausted your fortune merely by entering the gates of my Yusu palace. Now, instead of embracing humility, you audaciously covet the esteemed positions of the 12 golden immortals. Truly, you are utterly ignorant. Do you even contemplate whether you deserve such an honor, you wretched being? Listening to the words of Tai Junren, Shen Gongbao felt no sorrow in his heart. Rather, he found the situation somewhat amusing. Indeed, had it been the original Shen Gongbao, his earnest aspiration would have been to gain the recognition of Yuanshi Tianzuan and the respect of his fellow disciples in the Chan Sect. If he had witnessed the once affable Tai Junren so shamelessly dissecting his inner thoughts and expressing disdain, he would undoubtedly have felt that his centuries of effort were naught but an illusion. Such a revelation could have shattered his resolve, leaving him adrift and uncertain. However, for the current Shen Gongbao, Tai Junren's remarks were nothing more than empty words. He had long been aware of the disdain the Chan Sect held for him, a stark contrast to his previous self, who was entirely ensnared by his own delusions. Thus, as he observed the flustered Tai Junren, who was spewing forth his opinions, Shen Gongbao felt not anger, but rather found Tai's predicament quite laughable. Tai, should your words reach the public, it would surely be detrimental to our Chan Sect. He remarked leisurely once Tai Junren paused, breathless from his tirade. You must understand that during our Master-S time, despite our differing methods from the Jian sect and the Buddhist teachings, we still harbored a heart for the enlightenment of all beings. Your current rhetoric about wet-born larvae and monstrous demons, what is your true intent? Are you seeking to sever our Chan Sect's ties with the masses? Or are you perhaps an infiltrator from another sect, sent to tarnish our reputation? Initially, Tai Junren held a superior position, looking down upon Shen Gongbao. Yet upon hearing these words, cold sweat began to trickle down his brow, and his previously imposing demeanor faltered. His gaze, once fixed on Shen Gongbao, began to waver. With the previous scandal involving the Lingzhu's transformation, he already bore a stain on his reputation. Should Shen Gongbao disseminate such statements widely, Tai Junren's so-called status among the 12 golden immortals would be irreparably damaged. Despite the Chan Sect's arrogance, viewing the myriad mortals as mere ants, they would never dare to publicly declare such sentiments at the threshold of the impending investiture of the gods. Such an act could be fatal. Thus, it was only natural for Tai Junren to be seized by profound dread. Shen Gongbao, what nonsense are you spouting? I am the legitimate disciple of the Yuanshi lineage, the true heir of the Chan Sect. How could I possibly be an infiltrator from another sect? I have never sought to sever our connection with all beings. Tai Junren rebuked, his face flushed with anger, as if he wished to consume Shen Gongbao whole. In contrast to Tai Junren's fury, the present Shen Gongbao remained remarkably composed. Facing the predatory gaze of Tai Junren, a smirk of derision crept across his lips. Not an infiltrator? Then your utterance of such words is merely a manifestation of foolishness, is it not? Upon hearing this, Tai Junren staggered, nearly losing his balance mid-air, on the verge of plummeting. You. He glared at Shen Gongbao, eager to retort. One quickly realizes that there are no points to refute. Lies do not wound. It is the truth that acts as a sharp blade. Tai Junren seeks to argue, yet he cannot deceive his own conscience. What is Chintang Pass? It is the frontier of humanity. Guarding it are the elite of the human race, whose combat prowess is formidable. Moreover, lurking beyond Chintang Pass is a formidable contingent of the Eastern Sea Dragon clan. Given the unfolding circumstances surrounding the investiture of the gods, one cannot bypass them. At this critical juncture, when various sects are meticulously strategizing in the primordial wilderness, the words I have just spoken, if they were to circulate, would undoubtedly inflict catastrophic damage upon the Chan Sect. Such conduct can only be deemed foolish. Curse it. At this moment, Tai Junren could only feel fortunate. His conversation with Shen Gongbao was conducted in midair, their fierce exchange visible only in form, devoid of any audible communication. Otherwise, it would have led to an irreparable disaster. Shen Gongbao is correct. This thought flickered through Tai Junren's mind. However, he refused to acknowledge any fault, becoming increasingly enraged. Glaring at Shen Gongbao, he bellowed, Very well. Very well, what a silver-tongued Shen Gongbao you are. I must admit, I misjudged you before. However, no matter how you twist your words, you will ultimately remain in vain. You shall never occupy the position of the 12 golden immortals of the Chan Sect. With that, Tai Jinren was unwilling to engage further with Shen Gongbao, fearing that further discourse would lead him to expose some flaw, leaving him vulnerable to ridicule without the means to counter. Thus, he gazed intently at Shen Gongbao and decisively struck. With a wave of his hand, his whisk transformed into a tempest of 3,000 furious waves. Fiery tendrils, akin to venomous dragons and demonic serpents, surged forth in a chaotic dance. Wherever they passed, the heavens trembled and the earth quaked, akin to a raging torrent. Unstoppable in its might, Shen Gongbao, prepare to meet your demise. At this moment, Tai Jinren's fury reached its zenith. In his assault, he held nothing back. His violent actions left the couple, Li Jing and his wife, along with the other soldiers within Qintang Pass, utterly astonished. What was happening? Previously, both Tai Jinren and Shen Gongbao had exchanged sharp words without reservation. Yet, due to the fierce winds at 9 heavens, those standing within Qintang Pass, like Li Jing and the others, could only perceive their confrontation without grasping the developments. Now, as they witnessed Tai Jinren unleash his wrath, the 3,000 furious waves swept forth, accompanied by a terrifying pressure that resonated like thunder across the skies. It was evident that he would not relent until Shen Gongbao was subdued on the spot. The onlookers were left utterly stunned. Were not Shen Gongbao and Tai Jinren of the same school? Why had they suddenly turned against each other? The crowd remained perplexed. However, their confusion bore no consequence on the battlefield. At that moment, the venerable Tai Jinren, consumed by anger, unleashed his formidable power with a thunderous presence. In the blink of an eye, the surging 3,000 torrents had already traversed the distance between him and Shen Gongbao. Before they could truly ensnare Shen Gongbao, the latent power of Tai, along with the storm conjured from the surrounding spiritual energy, had already pressed down upon him. The gales, though intangible, possessed a sharpness surpassing that of earthly blades, striking mercilessly as if to rend Shen Gongbao asunder on the spot. Chapter 11. The manifestation of laws faced with the wrathful onslaught of Tai Jinren, Shen Gongbao exhibited no semblance of panic. As the overwhelming torrents, imbued with the potential for cataclysm, approached his corporeal form, they seemed to collide with an invisible yet resilient barrier, dissipating a significant portion of their ferocity. Observing this, a flicker of astonishment crossed Tai Jinren's gaze. In his understanding, Shen Gongbao was merely a downtrodden figure struggling within the confines of the golden, immortal realm. How could he have acquired such resilience against his full-force strike? Yet, despite his surprise, Tai's disdain for Shen Gongbao remained unabated. Humph, merely a display of underhanded tricks. Even if you fortuitously withstand this blow, what of it? You, an ordinary golden immortal, devoid of resources or backing. Even if fortune has granted you some fortuitous encounter, elevating your realm to stand alongside me, there remains an insurmountable chasm between us. As Tai Jinren snorted derisively, he again wielded his feather duster. This time, every filament shimmered with a dazzling radiance, weaving together to form a colossal net of light, descending upon Shen Gongbao. Hearing Tai's scornful words, Shen Gongbao, far from enraged, smiled with a hint of mockery. Tai, do not revel too soon. Today, I shall make you aware of what true strength entails. No sooner had he spoken than a chilling aura surged from his being. The surrounding air instantaneously froze, and countless ice crystals coalesced in the void, glimmering with a frigid light. These ice crystals, as if imbued with life, began to spiral rapidly around him, gradually forming into a massive ice dragon. The ice dragon roared skyward, its voice resonating through the heavens, carrying with it an endless chill as it lunged toward Tai Jinren. This ice dragon was a manifestation of Shen Gongbao's mastery over the laws of ice, its might incomparable to ordinary spells. Wherever it passed, the very fabric of space seemed to freeze, sharp icicles erupting in its wake. Though Tai Jinren felt a flicker of shock at the approaching ice dragon, his pride in his status would not allow him to yield easily. He chanted incantations, and flames of true samadhi erupted fiercely around him. The once blazing flames surged to their zenith in that moment, the fiery tongues dancing with abandon as if seeking to incinerate all in their path. The ice dragon collided with the true fire of samadhi, producing a deafening roar that reverberated through the air. In an instant, fire and ice intertwined, enveloping the surroundings in a dense white mist. Within the confines of Qintang Pass, Li Jing and his wife, along with myriad soldiers and civilians, were thrown into disarray by the overwhelming force. They gazed in terror at the fierce clash unfolding above, their hearts filled with awe. Amidst this violent confrontation, Master Tai was astonished to discover that his true fire of samadhi was gradually being suppressed by the frigid aura of the ice dragon. The once intensely scorching flames began to show signs of extinguishment under the relentless assault of the icy power. Meanwhile, the ice dragon, transformed from Shen Gongbao, grew increasingly formidable in this battle. As its massive claws swept through the air, they conjured chilling shadows, lunging towards Master Tai. How can this be possible? Your ice magic is astonishingly potent. Master Tai could no longer contain his astonishment. He could scarcely fathom that Shen Gongbao, whom he once regarded as insignificant, could now wield such formidable ice magic, gaining the upper hand in their duel. Shen Gongbao reveled in the sight of Master Tai's flustered expression, relishing the moment. Tai, did you truly believe that your lofty status and so-called resources could guarantee your supremacy? Today, I shall shatter your ludicrous misconceptions. With that, he thrust his hands forward. The ice dragon surged forth with a cataclysmic force, hurtling towards Master Tai. Master Tai's countenance paled. The impact of this strike, if met head-on, would undoubtedly leave him grievously injured. Without a moment's hesitation, he employed his agility to evade the ice dragon's assault. Yet, as if imbued with sentience, the ice dragon relentlessly pursued him. With a sweep of its tail, it completely severed Master Tai's escape route. In the instant that the dragon's colossal claw neared him, Master Tai hastily summoned a golden light shield in a desperate attempt to defend himself. Golden light spell. The shield clashed against the ice dragon's formidable claws, producing a cacophony of harsh friction and showering sparks in all directions. Although Master Tai temporarily thwarted the ice dragon's onslaught, his expression was one of profound dismay. Humph. Shen Gongbao, do you truly believe that your trifling spells can harm me? Such delusions are laughable. Master Tai feigned calmness, a derisive smirk playing on his lips. Yet a flicker of unnoticeable panic danced in his eyes. The potency displayed by the ice magic had far exceeded his expectations. Disregarding Master Tai's scorn, Shen Gongbao waved his hands once more. The ice dragon's form expanded exponentially, its scales shimmering with an even more dazzling cold light. As a formidable force of ice magic permeated the air, wherever this power spread, it seemed as though the very fabric of space had been frozen solid. Time seemed to come to a standstill, as a thick layer of ice enveloped the skies above Chintang Pass. Tai Jinren felt the terrifying force of the law, and the astonishment in his heart could no longer be concealed. He widened his eyes, gazing in disbelief at Shen Gongbao, exclaiming, "This is not merely an ice-cold spell. This is a power of the laws that only a great Luo golden immortal can wield. How could a mere demon such as yourself possibly cultivate such formidable law? This is utterly impossible." In his understanding, demons were inherently lowly, with scarce resources, and it was already a remarkable feat for them to reach the golden immortal realm, let alone comprehend such profound laws. Shen Gongbao, however, silently scoffed. The matters regarding the system were, after all, his greatest secret, not to be divulged to outsiders. At that moment, witnessing Tai Jinren's flustered demeanor, a wave of exhilaration surged within him. "Tai, today marks your demise," Shen Gongbao bellowed, commanding the ice dragon to launch another assault. The ice dragon roared, opening its cavernous maw to unleash a frigid breath stretching 100 meters. Wherever it passed, the fabric of space was torn asunder, creating deep black fissures. Tai Jinren, upon seeing this, was struck with horror. "Shen Gongbao, I shall fight you to the death," he shouted, unleashing all his spells. In an instant, the sky was illuminated with flashes of light as powerful energies clashed, producing deafening roars. Within Chintang Pass, Li Jing and his wife, along with numerous soldiers and civilians, were shaken by the overwhelming energy waves, causing their ears to bleed. They collapsed to the ground, fearfully gazing at the fierce confrontation above. Just as Shen Gongbao and Tai Jinren were locked in their intense battle, the demonic energy within Nezha surged uncontrollably, like a wild stallion breaking free. The demonic flames, which Shen Gongbao had temporarily suppressed, now erupted with even greater ferocity. Wherever the flames spread, the air ignited instantaneously, crackling ominously, and once again, Chintang Pass was engulfed in a terrifying wave of heat. Chapter 12. The Fury of the People. Li Jing and his wife, along with the soldiers and civilians, watched in anguish as Nezha struggled in torment, their anger burning fiercely like a raging inferno. Although they were unaware of the reasons behind the sudden conflict between Shen Gongbao and Tai Jinren, they had witnessed Shen Gongbao's prior efforts to assist Nezha and his attempts to prevent greater calamity from befalling Chintang Pass. In stark contrast, Tai Jinren's arrival not only failed to help subdue Nezha's demonic nature, but recklessly unleashed overwhelming spells. The aftermath of his spells indiscriminately spread, exacerbating the already ravaged Chintang Pass. Nearby buildings collapsed once more, and many civilians were injured in the chaos. Lady Yin, gazing at her suffering son and the ruins of the town, which had yet to recover but now faced further devastation, was engulfed by a tide of sorrow. In this moment of despair, taking advantage of Li Jing's momentary distraction, she swiftly drew the sword from his waist and vanished in a flash. Directly arriving at the site of the fierce confrontation between Shen Gongbao and Tai Zhenren, Lady Yin trembled as she held the sword against her throat. Her eyes filled with resolute fury. She shouted at Tai Zhenren, esteemed immortal, as the guide of Nezha, how can you remain inactive in this dire moment? Why do you obstruct Shen Gongbao from aiding Nezha? Look at what has become of Chintang Pass. See the suffering Nezha endures. If you do not cease your actions today, I shall take my own life here. Her voice, piercing and sorrowful, resonated clearly amidst the cacophony of their fierce battle. Li Jing, witnessing Lady Yin's desperate act, was struck with horror. He cried out, "Madam, no!" as he rushed towards her without a moment's hesitation. The soldiers and civilians of Chintang Pass fell to their knees, pleading towards Tai Zhenren, "Immortal, we beseech you to relent. Save our young master. Save Chintang Pass." Their voices intertwined, steeped in despair and helplessness. Tai Zhenren, upon hearing Lady Yin's accusations and the desperate pleas of the crowd, felt a jolt within his heart. His frenzied assaults momentarily faltered as he gazed down at the determined Lady Yin, her life hanging in the balance. A tumult of emotions washed over him, his face oscillating between pallor and flush. He was acutely aware that his actions were incomprehensible to others. Yet, the position of the 12 golden immortals loomed before him like a dazzling star in the heavens, a coveted dream, an obsession deeply ingrained in his soul. Lady Yin, do not let Shen Gongbao deceive you. Tai Zhenren gritted his teeth, forcing down a flicker of guilt within him. He retorted loudly, Nezha is the reincarnation of the spirit pearl, destined to fulfill his heavenly mandate. How can Shen Gongbao interfere? Everything I do is to align with destiny and guide Nezha onto the righteous path. His voice trembled slightly, yet he feigned strength, seeking to justify his actions with noble reasoning. With a sudden intensity, Tai Zhenren disregarded Lady Yin and the crowd's pleas, redirecting all his focus back to Shen Gongbao. The flames of his samadhi true fire blazed fiercely, deepening in hue. Shen Gongbao, should you thwart my noble intentions today, do not blame me for my ruthlessness. Tai Zhenren bellowed, sweeping his whisk with force. The shattered golden threads reformed, becoming thicker and more resilient, transforming into golden serpents that lunged menacingly at Shen Gongbao. Simultaneously, a massive bagua symbol materialized beneath Tai Zhenren, its runes shimmering with potent magical energy. He chanted incantations, weaving mysterious spells into the bagua diagram. In an instant, the symbol radiated with brilliant light, emanating a formidable force, as if it sought to draw everything around it into an endless abyss. Shen Gongbao felt the intense backlash from Tai Zhenren, his expression grave, cautious not to underestimate the situation. He commanded the ice dragon, channeling the power of the icy laws to its utmost limits. A thick layer of ice encased the dragon's form, each scale shimmering with a frigid luminescence. In response to Tai Zhenren's assault, the ice dragon reared back and roared, its massive claws poised to meet the oncoming golden serpent. The clash of dragon claw against serpent body erupted with a thunderous resonance, ice shards and golden light scattering in all directions, while a powerful wave of energy surged like an invisible tempest, wreaking havoc upon the surrounding space. Below, Lady Yin observed with despair and fury as Tai Zhenren recklessly disregarded his own life, relentlessly attacking Shen Gongbao. The sword in her hand pressed tightly against her throat, blood trickling down its blade, dripping onto the earth beneath. Tai Zhenren, are you not afraid of retribution from above? She cried out to the heavens, her voice choked with tears. The citizens of Chintang Pass watched helplessly as Lady Yin threatened her own life, yet Tai Zhenren remained unmoved, continuing his frenzied battle with Shen Gongbao. The pent-up rage within them could no longer be contained, ignited by the devastation wrought by Nezha's demonic outburst, transforming their grief into a smoldering inferno that engulfed the entire city. A crescendo of furious roars erupted from the crowd, each wave of sound rising higher than the last. As if seeking to break through the chaotic sky, Tai Zhenren, you disgrace your celestial status, disregarding the lives of the people, such as against the natural order. They shouted in collective outrage. We esteemed and trusted you, yet you display such cruelty. What difference is there between you and the demons? Their anguished rebukes resonated in the air above Chintang Pass, their gazes towards the heavens filled with hatred and disappointment. The reverence they once held for the immortals evaporating in an instant. Li Jing, witnessing the resolute Lady Yin and hearing the desperate cries of the populace, felt a surge of fervor overwhelm him, his reason eclipsed by indignation. He drew his sword, pointing it at the raging Tai Junren in the sky. Trembling with rage, yet unwavering, Li Jing proclaimed, Tai Junren, if you persist in this manner today, I, Li Jing, shall risk my very life to bring this matter to the heavens. I shall demand justice from the cosmos for your transgressions. Why must the citizens of Qintang Pass suffer this calamity? What sin has my son Nezha committed to deserve such treatment? If you do not cease your actions, I vow I shall not rest until justice is served. Li Jing's oath struck like a heavy hammer upon the hearts of all present. The military and civilians of Qintang Pass rose in unison, their fists clenched. Flames of fury igniting in their eyes as they echoed in unison. Indeed, we stand with General Li, determined to seek justice. In that moment, the fervor of the crowd surged, emboldened by Li Jing's words. No longer did they fear the formidable celestial being above. Their hearts were set on seeking retribution for themselves, their families, and the honor of Qintang Pass. Meanwhile, the battle between Shen Gongbao and Tai Junren had reached a fevered pitch. Tai Junren, under the scorn of Li Jing and the condemnation of the people, felt a flicker of panic welling within him. Yet, his obsession with the position of the 12 golden immortals steeled his resolve, and he continued to summon his spells with increasing ferocity. Li Jing surveyed the hellish scene before him, his heart heavy with anguish and helplessness. He paced back and forth, each step feeling as if it were upon a razor's edge. On one side lay his beloved wife, pressing him with her life, and on the other, the countless citizens of Qintang Pass suffering amidst the flames of war. The root of all this turmoil was none other than his son Nezha, born after 3 years and 6 months of bearing. He understood that as long as the evil within Nezha remained, this calamity would never cease. General Li, think of a way. The people can no longer endure. General, save us. If this continues, Qintang Pass will be lost. Chapter 13, Li Jing's Dilemma. Amidst the desperate cries of the military and civilians, Li Jing lifted his gaze, scanning the devastation that lay throughout the city. Amidst the ruins, the cries of children and the groans of the wounded pierced his heart like needles. He looked to the sky, where the fierce battle between Shen Gongbao and Tai Junren raged on, showing no signs of resolution. Meanwhile, the sword in Lady Yin's hand had drawn blood, trickling down her fair neck. Lady Li Jing's lips trembled, her voice barely audible, tears brimming in her eyes. He realized that to end this disaster, the root cause, Nezha, must be eliminated. This thought struck him like a heavy hammer, causing him profound anguish. Yet, as the guardian of Qintang Pass, protecting the people was his duty. As a husband, he could not bear to watch his wife sacrifice herself for their son. Nezha, do not blame your father. Li Jing gritted his teeth. The words forced through clenched jaws, his eyes filled with pain and struggle. He abruptly turned, blade in hand, rushing toward Nezha's location. Along the way, bricks and stones tore at his clothing, blood seeping forth, yet he remained oblivious. At that moment, a singular thought consumed him: to put an end to this chaos. To save Qintang Pass, his wife, and the people. Nezha, engulfed in flames of malevolence, rampaged wildly, oblivious to his father's approach. Li Jing reached him, gazing upon his son, now consumed by darkness and twisted in rage, tears finally streaming down his face. He raised his sword high, his arm trembling violently, unable to bring it down. Nezha, I am sorry, but for Qintang Pass, for your mother, I have no choice, Li Jing whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Lady Yin had been watching Li Jing's every move. Upon seeing him charging toward Nezha with the blade, a flicker of terror crossed her eyes. Without a moment's hesitation, she dashed towards him like a bolt of lightning. Just as Li Jing's sword was about to pierce Nezha, Lady Yin arrived. With a swift motion, she crossed her sword, a deafening clang resonating through the air as metal met metal, sparks flying. Li Jing's strike, laden with helplessness and sorrow, was valiantly deflected by Lady Yin. My lord, how could you do this? Lady Yin cried, tears streaming down her face, her voice trembling with disbelief at Li Jing's actions, mingled with a mother's instinctive urge to protect her child. In that moment, her disheveled hair and fluttering garments rendered her a fierce goddess of war. She would not allow anyone to harm her child. High above, Tai Junren beheld the chaotic scene, his heart suddenly gripped by panic. Initially, he had been brimming with confidence, believing that his status and power could control the situation. Yet now, with Shen Gongbao stirring the pot, the Li Jing couple at odds, and the people of Qintang Pass seething with anger, everything slipped from his grasp. He realized that his actions had gradually painted him as the villain in the eyes of the crowd, a predicament detrimental to his aspirations for the 12 golden immortals. Shen Gongbao observed this spectacle with concealed delight, fully aware that his objectives had been realized. At that moment, he stood at the moral high ground, embodying the hope for saving Chintang Pass. Drawing a deep breath, his aura surged dramatically, powerful waves of magical energy radiating outward like a tumultuous sea. "Let anyone dare to harm my disciple," Shen Gongbao bellowed, his voice resonating like thunder in the heavens. Swiftly forming hand seals, he summoned a massive ice dragon, its chilling radiance pulsating at his palms. The ice dragon let out a piercing roar, releasing a frigid aura that instantly froze the surrounding air. As he commanded the ice dragon in fierce opposition to Tai Zhenren, he simultaneously conjured a thread of magic into a transparent shield, enveloping Lady Yin and Nezha within its protective embrace. Tai Zhenren, shaken and enraged by Shen Gongbao's imposing presence, wielded his whisk, the flames of Sanmei Zhenhua blazing fiercely, attempting to break through Shen Gongbao's onslaught. However, the power of Shen Gongbao's icy magic was unparalleled. Wherever the ice dragon roamed, the Sanmei Zhenhua was relentlessly suppressed, leaving Tai Zhenren's assault impotent against Lady Yin and Nezha. The citizens of Chintang Pass gazed skyward at the formidable Shen Gongbao, their despair gradually yielding to hope. They watched as he valiantly stood against Tai Zhenren, protecting Lady Yin and Nezha, their hearts swelling with gratitude and admiration for him. Daoist Shen Gongbao is our savior. He shall surely rescue Chintang Pass and defeat Tai Zhenren. The voices of the people rose in fervent unison. Despite being forced back by Shen Gongbao's relentless assault, Tai Zhenren remained unwilling to concede. For him, Nezha represented not only an opportunity, but also his standing within the Chan teaching. He could not easily relinquish it. Thus, he summoned all his inner strength, and the flames of Sanmei Zhenhua erupted, growing several feet in height. The once blazing fire now took on a more sinister quality, exuding an air of madness. With hands moving rapidly, he danced his whisk with fervor, each swirl of golden light entwined with the Sanmei Zhenhua, shooting forth towards Shen Gongbao like a torrential rain of arrows. Upon witnessing the unfolding scene, Shen Gongbao's gaze sharpened, and he let out a cold snort. He understood that swift resolution was imperative, for the situation could shift at any moment. Consequently, Shen Gongbao summoned the mystical powers within him, intending to unleash the ancestral dragon's might, hidden deep within his bloodline. In an instant, a formidable dragon aura enveloped him. The ice dragon that had previously encircled him seemed to respond to an overwhelming force, its form swelling dramatically. Its scales shimmered with brilliant light, and an ancient, powerful presence began to permeate the atmosphere. Simultaneously, Shen Gongbao propelled the power of the cold ice laws to their zenith, intertwining it with the ancestral dragon's force. The collision of these two potent energies produced a peculiar resonance, catapulting Shen Gongbao's strength to a terrifying realm. Tai Yi, today I shall demonstrate my true prowess, Shen Gongbao bellowed, thrusting his hands forward with fervor. In his heart, he mused, though I have merely entered the realm of Tai Yi Golden Immortal, in this full-blown eruption of power, I shall not falter against the pinnacle of Tai Yi Golden Immortal, and I might even gain the upper hand. In an awe-inspiring spectacle, the ice dragon, empowered by the ancestral dragon's might and the laws of cold ice, transformed into a colossal azure beam, akin to a meteor streaking across the heavens, bearing the weight of cataclysmic force as it surged toward Tai Zhenren. As it traversed the space, the fabric of reality was violently torn asunder. Black fissures emerged, resembling the gaping jaws of a monstrous beast, devouring everything in their vicinity. Tai Zhenren, confronted by this terrifying assault, felt a surge of dread wash over him. The confidence that once adorned his visage vanished without a trace, replaced by an overwhelming shock. He attempted to evade, only to find his body ensnared by an invisible force. Immobile, the ancestral dragon's might. No, this is impossible, Tai Zhenren roared, his voice laced with despair. He endeavored to deflect the lethal strike with his fly whisk. Yet against Shen Gongbao's formidable strength, his resistance appeared futile. With a resounding crash, the azure light collided head-on with Tai Zhenren, unleashing a cataclysmic wave of energy akin to a nuclear explosion. The brilliance illuminated the entire sky, and ferocious gusts of wind radiated outward from the epicenter of the explosion. On the ground at Chantang Pass, debris and dust were propelled into the air, structures were upended by the overwhelming shockwave, and the townsfolk were sent sprawling to the ground. Li Jing and Lady Yin stood transfixed, gazing at the astonishing spectacle above, rendered speechless by the sheer magnitude of Shen Gongbao's display of power. Their eyes widened in disbelief as they beheld such terrifying strength, their astonishment beyond the capacity for words. Chapter 14. Forcing Tai Yijinren back in the wake of this devastating strike. Tai Yijinren was sent hurtling through the air, akin to a kite severed from its string. His body traced a long arc before crashing heavily onto a distant mountain. The mountainside crumbled upon impact, clouds of dust billowing into the air. Though unscathed, Tai Yijinren lay amidst the rubble, sensing a disarray within his own essence. He gazed at the dimming brilliance of the divine beast Shen Gongbao in the sky, his eyes filled with incredulity. He could hardly fathom that Shen Gongbao possessed such formidable strength. His own pinnacle of Tai golden immortal power had been effortlessly cast aside by a single strike. How could this be? His gaze pierced through the swirling dust, fixating on the imposing figure of Shen Gongbao, whose radiance was waning yet remained awe-inspiring. How could it be possible? He was a distinguished Tai golden immortal, yet he had been sent flying by a mere novice, a so-called waste in the realm of Tai golden immortal. Tai Yijinren lamented within, his thoughts echoing incessantly, steeped in disbelief. I, Tai Yijinren, a direct disciple of Yuan Shitianzuan, with roots firmly grounded, have devoted myself to the path since my entry into the Chan school, dedicating my life to cultivation. My innate talent is extraordinary. I have pursued the Tao with singular focus, convinced that I was but a step away from the rank of the 12 golden immortals. That Shen Gongbao is merely a wretched creature born of a damp, vile lineage. A flicker of resentment flashed in Tai Yijinren's eyes as he contemplated Shen Gongbao. His teeth clenched involuntarily, rage surging within him like a tumultuous tide. Born of humble origins, he carried the fetid scent of the demon race. In the Chan school, he faced constant adversity, scorned and marginalized, a mere fringe figure unworthy of recognition. The memory of Shen Gongbao's once obsequious demeanor resurfaced, filling Tai Yijinren with disdain. He toiled ceaselessly for the acknowledgement of his master, yet never grasped the essence, his progress stagnating. Countless times, he had ridiculed Shen Gongbao in his heart, viewing him as a mere clown, forever incapable of reaching his heights. But now, a pang of agony pierced Tai Yijinren's heart. When had he undergone such a monumental transformation? This was utterly impossible. He must have traversed some unorthodox path, acquiring a fortuitous opportunity that enabled his sudden surge in power. Jealousy and resentment consumed Tai Yijinren as he beheld Shen Gongbao, feeling as though his years of effort and superiority were ruthlessly trampled in that moment. Observing Tai Yijinren's demeanor, Li Jing and his wife were engulfed in fury, akin to a volcano erupting. Li Jing stepped forward, his gaze piercing, fixing intently on Tai Yijinren as he rebuked. Tai Yijinren, have you not an ounce of compassion befitting an immortal? You have left the boundary beast here, watching the citizens of Chintang Pass suffer in dire straits. Their homes collapsing and lives in ruin, yet you stand idly by as calamity spreads. Now, when Master Shen Gongbao is devoted to saving my son and rescuing Chintang Pass, you obstruct him. Such conduct is unbecoming of an immortal. Madame Yin, tears streaming down her face, trembled as she cried, my son Nezha is in torment. The people of Chintang Pass are displaced, and yet you, as a celestial teacher, remain inactive. Even for your own selfish gain, you hinder the rescue efforts. No matter how transcendent your powers may be, how can you earn respect, and how do you deserve to be a mentor? Listening to the reproaches of Li Jing and his wife, Tai Yijinren's eyes flickered as he obstinately retorted, all of this is but fate, destined and unavoidable by mortal means. In the face of calamity at Chintang Pass, the suffering of the common folk is but the manifestation of celestial decrees, and we, as immortals, can only acquiesce to fate. With these words, he turned towards Shen Gongbao, a flicker of malice flashing in his eyes as he spoke vehemently. Shen Gongbao, you have persistently obstructed my endeavors, thwarting my grand designs. Do not forget, you are ultimately a disciple of the Chan teaching. Should you continue to act with such reckless abandon, the esteemed Master Yuan Shitianzuan will not spare you. Upon hearing this, Shen Gongbao let out a cold, mocking laugh, his contempt palpable. His gaze, sharp as lightning, pierced through to Tai Yijinren as he challenged. What a splendid notion of acquiescing to fate. You incessantly proclaim that Nezha is the reincarnation of the spirit pearl, destined by heaven. Yet now, I implore you to open your eyes and behold. Why does he exude such demonic energy, his mind clouded by malevolence, wreaking havoc upon Chintang Pass? If he were truly the reincarnation of the spirit pearl, how could he find himself in such despair? Pray, elucidate this conundrum for me. Tai Yijinren, caught off guard by Shen Gongbao's inquiry, found himself at a loss for words. His gaze darted about, and he stammered, unable to articulate a coherent response. He opened his mouth to refute, only to realize that a reasonable explanation eluded him. Shen Gongbao's gaze was as piercing as a sword, locking onto Tai Jinren. His words striking like daggers. Tai Yi, are you aware that this tribulation concerns the very rhythm of heaven and earth, the rise and fall of the primordial world? Nezha bears a mission, and within this calamity, he is a crucial variable influencing the trajectory of events. Now, the curtain has only just risen, yet you, driven by selfish motives, have entangled the situation into utter chaos. The denizens of Chintang Pass are in dire straits, and Nezha's demonic tendencies are rampant. If such disorder persists, the balance of this tribulation will be irrevocably disrupted, with consequences beyond imagination. Tell me, when Master learns of this, upon whom will he lay the blame? Tai Jinren's complexion turned ashen, his lips trembling, yet not a word escaped his mouth. Each of Shen Gongbao's statements struck him like a hammer, rendering him incapable of defense. He knew that once his actions were scrutinized by Yuan Shi Tianzun, he would be unable to evade culpability. Yet now, before the gathered crowd, he could not even muster a pretext to absolve himself. At that moment, the citizens of Chintang Pass began to gather around. And witnessing the speechless Tai Jinren, their long-suppressed fury erupted like a torrent. Bah! What a sham of an immortal! We have revered you all along, only to discover your heart is as cold as ice, indifferent to our plight. An elderly man, his hair as white as snow, trembled with rage, pointing his cane at Tai Jinren as he hurled insults. Daoist Shun is wholly devoted to our salvation, even seeking to rescue young Master Nezha. Yet you obstruct him at every turn. You are unworthy of the title Immortal. A robust young man, his face aflame with indignation, glared fiercely. Daoist Shun is our benefactor in Chintang Pass. He possesses both skill and compassion, unlike you, who, despite your formidable powers, lacks a shred of empathy. A woman cradling her child wept openly, her voice rising above the clamor. The citizens, each adding their voice to the chorus of condemnation, surged forth like a tidal wave, drowning Tai Jinren in their collective outrage. Their gratitude towards Shen Gongbao sharply contrasted with their disdain for Tai Jinren. The once exalted image of Tai Jinren had now completely crumbled in the hearts of the people, rendering him an object of universal contempt. Shen Gongbao, undeterred by Tai Jinren's loss of dignity, turned his full attention to Nezha. His palms radiated a gentle and sacred light, imbued with strands of ethereal energy that gracefully penetrated Nezha's being like delicate threads. Under Shen Gongbao's guidance, these forces surged forth like disciplined soldiers, methodically assaulting the rampant demonic energy. Each ripple of power ignited violent upheaval within Nezha's surrounding demonic flames. Under the pressure of this formidable yet gentle force, the demonic energy began to wane, gradually retreating in defeat. As Shen Gongbao's incantations continued, Nezha's previously twisted and monstrous visage, overtaken by demonic influence, gradually regained its composure. His tightly shut eyes began to tremble and slowly opened. Within his clear gaze, a luminous intelligence sparkled, banishing the earlier madness and brutality of the infernal flames. Nezha surveyed the devastated Chintang Pass. The sight of collapsed houses, injured citizens, and the pervasive sorrow and anguish in the air dimmed his eyes, as waves of guilt engulfed him. Chapter 15. Nezha's apprenticeship with Shen Gongbao. What have I done? Nezha's voice, tender yet laden with anguish, marked his first spoken words since birth. His gaze swept across the weary yet relieved faces of the surrounding populace, his small frame quivering slightly. Soon after, his eyes fell upon Li Jing. He stared intently at his father, his expression brimming with complexity, hurt, confusion, and a hint of an unspoken estrangement. The memory of being under demonic control, with his father charging at him wielding a blade, seared into Nezha's young soul like a brand. Even now, having regained his senses, recollections of that moment stirred a bittersweet ache within him. Father, Nezha whispered, his voice trembling, the term feeling somewhat foreign on his lips. His lips quivered, as though he wished to articulate more, yet hesitated, succumbing to silence. Shen Gongbao, perceptive and astute, instantly discerned the turmoil within Nezha's eyes. He gently approached the young boy, his voice soft yet imbued with undeniable authority, saying, Nezha, your father's actions were born from desperation, with the countless citizens of Chintang Pass ensnared in peril, and your mother compelling him with her life. He, as the guardian of Chintang Pass, bore the weighty duty of protection. In this moment of life and death, faced with an agonizing decision, he had no choice but to resort to such measures. His affection for you has never wavered. Listening to Shen Gongbao's words, Nezha furrowed his delicate brow, lost in contemplation. After a lengthy pause, he lifted his head, tears glistening in his clear eyes. He gazed at Li Jing and Lady Yin, his lips quivering slightly, and finally called out softly, "Father, Mother." This clear and resonant call instantaneously dispelled the gloom that shrouded the hearts of Li Jing and his wife. Upon hearing Nezha's voice, Li Jing's eyes brimmed with tears, which cascaded down his cheeks. He hurriedly stepped forward and embraced Nezha tightly, his voice choked with emotion. "Nezha, my son." In that moment, Li Jing was engulfed in profound self-reflection, epitomizing the essence of a father whose love is as steadfast as a mountain. Lady Yin, too, was beyond words, her tears flowing freely. She approached and gently stroked Nezha's head. The family embraced one another closely. Once their emotions began to settle, Li Jing and Lady Yin slowly released Nezha from their hold, sharing a meaningful glance that conveyed their mutual understanding. The couple turned in unison and deeply bowed to Shen Gongbao. Li Jing sincerely spoke, "Master Shen Gongbao, not only have you saved my son, but you have also rescued countless citizens of Chintang Pass. The immense kindness you have shown will forever be etched in the hearts of my wife and me. Today, we humbly request that you take Nezha as your disciple. Under your guidance, he may tread the righteous path and one day repay your kindness, contributing to the welfare of all living beings." Lady Yin nodded vigorously by his side, her eyes brimming with hope and entreaty. Shen Gongbao regarded the kneeling couple with a gentle smile. He raised his hand slightly, and a soft wave of spiritual energy lifted them. As he spoke in a harmonious tone, "Please, rise. Nezha possesses extraordinary innate qualities and remarkable spiritual essence. My desire to accept him as a disciple is already fulfilled, and such grand gestures are unnecessary." With that, Shen Gongbao turned to Nezha, his eyes filled with anticipation. "Nezha, do you wish to take me as your master and learn the way with me?" Nezha looked up at Shen Gongbao, the celestial figure who had steadied the turbulent waters during his moment of chaos, exuding a reassuring aura of strength. Reflecting on how Shen Gongbao had risked everything to save him and the people of Chintang Pass, Nezha felt a deep sense of admiration and gratitude. Meanwhile, Taizhenren, witnessing Li Jing and Lady Yin imploring Shen Gongbao to accept Nezha, felt a surge of indignation ignite within him. He swiftly stepped forward and proclaimed loudly, "Li Jing, Lady Yin, how can you be so misguided? Nezha and I share a profound connection. The matter of the Spirit Pearl's reincarnation is intrinsically linked to me. He rightfully belongs under my tutelage, following my path, and cannot be so casually transferred to Shen Gongbao." As he spoke, Taizhenren glared fiercely at Shen Gongbao. Lady Yin, upon hearing this, widened her eyes in fury and stepped forward, pointing an accusatory finger at Taizhenren, chastising him. "Taizhenren, what face do you have left to utter such nonsense? From Nezha's birth until now, what have you done for him? You left the barrier beast but allowed him to suffer in anguish while the citizens of Chintang Pass endured tremendous hardship, which you turned a blind eye to. Master Shen Gongbao has devoted himself to rescue, while you have done everything to obstruct." In this moment, the couple resolved to have Nezha take Shen Gongbao as his master, questioning whether as parents they could not have a say in their child's choice of mentor. Lady Yin, filled with emotion, spoke with a trembling voice, each word steeped in disappointment and discontent towards Taizhenren. Li Jing's expression was grim, and with a heavy snort, he concurred, "What my wife states is indeed true. Tai, your actions today have left us disheartened. As parents, we shall carefully deliberate on Nezha's future, and there is no need for you to meddle." Shen Gongbao stood quietly to the side, a faint smile gracing his lips, his eyes radiating conviction. He understood that the course of events was already set. No amount of struggle from Taizhenren would alter the outcome. From the outset, he had occupied the moral high ground in this contest. Now, with Li Jing and his wife resolved in their decision, taking Nezha as his disciple was merely a natural progression. After regaining his senses, Nezha had been listening intently to the conversation. At this moment, upon hearing Taizhenren's attempt to obstruct his apprenticeship, a surge of fury ignited within him. The demonic energy around him swelled violently, flames of crimson blazing with intensity. His youthful visage contorted with rage, eyes wide as saucers, he glared at Taizhenren and shouted, "You, fat fool, haven't you caused me enough suffering already? How dare you continue to prattle on? Speak another word, and I shall make you regret it, leaving you searching for your teeth on the ground." As he spoke, Nezha cracked his knuckles. Taizhenren's face shifted from pale to red. He glanced at the furious couple, then at the composed Shen Gongbao, realizing that the tide had turned against him, leaving him powerless to change the situation. Gritting his teeth, he silently resolved, "Humph, Shen Gongbao, do not celebrate too soon. This matter shall not be settled easily." Taizhenren contemplated seeking assistance from other brothers upon returning to the mountain. determined to reclaim Nezha from Shen Gongbao. With this thought, he shot a furious glare at both Shen Gongbao and Nezha before transforming into a flurry of retreating light, leaving in disgrace. Shen Gongbao observed Tai Jinren's departing figure, a knowing smile gracing his face. He then turned to Nezha and spoke gently, "From this day forth, you shall be my disciple, Nezha. I shall dedicate myself to guiding you in your cultivation, ensuring you carve out your own name in this world." Upon hearing this, Nezha's face brightened with a radiant smile, and he respectfully knelt to pay his respects, exclaiming, "Yes, master. I shall diligently heed your teachings and strive to cultivate my skills." Shen Gongbao watched Nezha kneeling in reverence, a look of satisfaction crossing his features. He extended a hand, channeling a gentle power that lifted Nezha with ease. Thus, Nezha officially became his disciple. At that moment, the cold and mechanical prompt of the disciple collection system resonated suddenly in Shen Gongbao's mind, each word bearing an immense weight, echoing continuously within his heart. Successfully collected disciple, the reincarnation of the innate demon child Nezha. The host gains the return of flame power, exceedingly multiplied by 100,000 times, slightly comprehending the laws of fire. In an instant, Shen Gongbao felt a surging and overwhelming force of flame erupting from the depths of his soul. This power was both searing and ferocious, far surpassing any flame he had ever encountered, as if it could incinerate all things in the world. Simultaneously, within his sea of consciousness, esoteric runes and profound insights regarding the laws of fire surged forth like a tide. Though merely a glimpse into the path, it granted him a newfound understanding of fire's application, as if he could command the rise and fall of all sources of flame in the world. Before Shen Gongbao could fully recover from this shock, the system's prompt resounded once more. The host has received the return of the innate spiritual body, exceedingly multiplied by 100,000 times, gaining the Wuxiang golden body. No sooner had the words left the system's mouth than Shen Gongbao sensed his flesh and bones being reshaped by a mysterious, formidable power. Every inch of skin and every bone underwent a monumental transformation. In the blink of an eye, Shen Gongbao had attained the Wuxiang golden body. This golden body not only endowed him with unparalleled defensive strength, but also granted his form the ability to transform in myriad ways, as if he could alter the very heavens and earth with a mere gesture. Now that I possess the Wuxiang golden body, perhaps once the investiture of the gods concludes, I too could achieve sanctification in physical form, like Erlang Shenyang Jian. Following closely, the final prompt from the system echoed. The host has received the return of calamity fortune, along with assistance to Nezha in purging malevolence, gaining 2 innate virtues. 2 warm and serene rays of light instantly fused into Shen Gongbao's being. He felt an ever-deepening connection with the universe, as if a powerful force were safeguarding him from the unseen. The power of innate virtues is immensely precious. Not only can it aid others in overcoming tribulations on their path to cultivation, but it can also illuminate the great ways of heaven and earth at critical moments. Breaking through cultivation bottlenecks, Shen Gongbao stood in a daze, his heart filled with astonishment, as he summoned the system panel in his mind. Radiant brilliance shone forth. Countless rhythms converged in his consciousness, transforming into a luminous screen. Tenfold disciple return system. After the host collects disciples, all gains of the disciples will be multiplied by tenfold. Returning to the host, Shen Gongbao. Cultivation level, early Tai Golden Immortal, disciples. Lingzhu Reincarnation Ao Bing, Demon Pearl Reincarnation Nezha, returns, slightly comprehending the laws of ice, slightly comprehending the laws of fire, a trace of ancestral dragon's pressure, Wuxiang Golden Body, 3 innate virtues, analyze spells, Qiantian Zixiao Divine Thunder, Yuming Guishui Yin Thunder, Whitebone Soul Fixing Technique, Golden Light Spell, unlock permissions, beginner saint slaying, can disrupt one's own causality under great calamity. Shield against all calculations of saints. Chapter 16. Nezha's breakthrough. Several years passed in a flash. As the reincarnation of the Demon Pill, Nezha bears an extraordinary mission. At this moment, he has transitioned from a tender child into the form of a youth. The childishness has faded from his face, replaced by an expression of unwavering determination. Under the meticulous guidance and close observation of Shen Gongbao, Nezha immerses himself in cultivation within a tranquil cave. His eyes are tightly shut, and his demeanor is grave. His aura is reclusive, yet subtly emanates a tremendous power. He is fully engrossed in channeling his magical energy. Flames flicker around his body, their fierce glow both elusive and tangible. The searing heat envelopes the cave, instantly elevating its temperature. These flames are not ordinary. They possess the unique dominance and intensity of the demon pill. They manifest a profound crimson hue, resembling flowing lava, surging recklessly beside him. With each steady breath Nezha takes, the spiritual essence of heaven and earth seems to respond to an invisible summons, continuously converging towards him. As this essence approaches his body, it is instantly ignited by the intense heat, transforming into shimmering strands of fiery spiritual energy that rush eagerly into his being. Each infusion of this fiery essence fortifies Nezha's magical power, enriching it further. His meridians expand and strengthen under the relentless onslaught of this formidable force. Shen Gongbao stands vigilantly by, his gaze firmly fixed on Nezha. He is acutely aware of Nezha's progress in cultivation and knows that he has reached a pivotal moment of breakthrough. In Shen Gongbao's perception, Nezha's meridians and bones, having undergone prolonged refinement through spiritual energy, have reached the utmost limits of what his current realm can withstand. The accumulated power is akin to a volcano on the brink of eruption, poised to unleash its might. All that remains is to shatter the barriers and undergo a monumental transformation from the mundane to the celestial path. Years of dedication are on the verge of fruition. Shen Gongbao ponders silently, his eyes brimming with anticipation. Suddenly, the spiritual energy of the cosmos surges into Nezha's body like a flood breaching its dam, pouring in with a force that could level mountains. This energy intertwines and collides with his existing magical power, much like tumultuous waves crashing against the shore, continually refining his power and accumulating it to its zenith. Then, it crashes with full force against the barrier obstructing his ascension. The power within Nezha has reached a volcanic intensity. Success or failure hinges upon this moment. Shen Gongbao contemplates. At that instant, the flames surrounding Nezha erupt in brilliance, multiplying in intensity. The once ethereal crimson fire lotus solidifies instantly. The petals of the lotus appear forged from the hottest magma, radiating an intimidating heat. Within the lotus, Nezha's form is enveloped in light, appearing as if the fire deity has descended upon the earth. His magical energy surges forth like a tsunami, the overwhelming force causing the rocks within the cave to tremble. Debris cascades down. Nezha's forehead glistens with beads of sweat, his teeth clenched tightly. His complexion flushes slightly from the exertion. At last, with a deafening roar, the bottleneck within Nezha shattered like fragile paper struck by a hammer. A radiant beam of crimson light surged from his being, instantly illuminating the entire cave. The brilliance was so overwhelming that it was nearly blinding. That unprecedented, formidable aura swept forth like a tempest, soaring toward the cave's ceiling. Nezha had successfully broken through, officially stepping into the first realm of the immortal path, the human immortal stage. The system's response resonated like a great bell. In an instant, it vividly manifested within the mind of Shen Gongbao. Congratulations, host, for nurturing disciple Ao Bing to attain the human immortal stage. 10,000-fold return commences. The ethereal voice of the system reverberated deep within his consciousness. In that moment, a torrent of violent magical energy howled forth from the void, akin to a surging river, flooding into Shen Gongbao's body with an unstoppable force. He felt his power soaring rapidly, his spirit vibrating as a sea of consciousness churned. The relentless flow of magical energy refined his meridians and soul, propelling him swiftly toward the pinnacle of the early stage, just a step away from the mid-stage. This 10,000-fold return from the system propelled his cultivation directly to the peak of the early Tai Golden Immortal stage. He was now but a hair's breadth from the mid-stage, sparing him thousands of years of arduous cultivation. Shen Gongbao was filled with emotion. Beside him, Ao Bing observed Nezha's ascending aura and successful breakthrough. A gentle smile graced his lips, his eyes gleaming with sincere joy. Ao Bing elegantly approached Nezha, slightly cupping his hands in salute, and softly said, "Nezha, congratulations on your successful breakthrough to the human immortal stage. Your extraordinary talent will surely shine brightly on your future path of cultivation." His voice was soft, reminiscent of a babbling brook in the mountains, gentle and serene. He emanated an innate elegance, embodying a refined demeanor. Upon hearing Ao Bing's congratulations, Nezha's lips curled into a characteristic grin, revealing his signature tiger tooth. His face bore a carefree smile as he responded boisterously, "Huh? This is as easy for me as eating and drinking. A trivial matter." As he spoke, he casually waved his hand in the air, exuding a nonchalant demeanor that vividly reflected his audacious personality. Shen Gongbao observed everything with a sense of gratification and expectation in his eyes. He was acutely aware that the divine calamity was imminent. This tribulation hung over all beings like the sword of Damocles, fraught with uncertainty and peril. Before this, whether to secure a sliver of survival amidst the catastrophe or to realize his grand ambitions, both of his disciples needed to grow in strength at an accelerated pace. Just thinking of the two of them, one reincarnated from a spiritual pearl, the other emerging from a demonic orb, both were individuals blessed with fortune. Upon reaching the realm of immortality, should one remain stagnant within the confines of the mountains, even with steady cultivation, myriad opportunities would inevitably slip away. It is only through venturing forth into the world, amidst perilous trials, that one can truly sharpen their mind and essence. When fortune aligns, rapid advancement is assured, far superior to the solitary endeavor of crafting one's path in seclusion. Thus, he raised his hand and called out with a resonant voice, "Ao Bing, Nezha, come forth." Upon hearing the summons, the two disciples immediately reined in their energy and approached Shen Gongbao with respectful demeanor, standing before him with hands humbly at their sides. Shen Gongbao's gaze swept over them before he spoke slowly. "You two have now attained the realm of immortals, yet the path of cultivation is long and arduous. Though the mountains offer tranquility, great fortune is scarce. I desire for you to venture out and hone your skills in the world. Do not tarnish my reputation, and remember, caution is paramount in all matters." Ao Bing, with a solemn expression, nodded slightly and replied, "Rest assured, Master. I shall diligently abide by your teachings and live up to your expectations." Nezha, on the other hand, was visibly exhilarated, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm as he rubbed his fists together, revealing his signature tiger teeth. With a beaming smile, Nezha exclaimed, "Haha, at last, I can venture into the world. Master, just you wait, I will surely create a great stir." He was brimming with an eager spirit. Observing the contrasting natures of his disciples, Shen Gongbao spoke again, directing his gaze toward Ao Bing. "Binger, you are composed and prudent. However, the hearts of men are intricate and treacherous. Do not place your trust in others lightly." He then turned his attention to Nezha, his expression growing stern. "Nezha, your temperament is impulsive and reckless. When faced with matters outside, maintain your composure and do not act rashly, lest you invite calamity." "Master, fret not. I shall not act recklessly," Nezha began, but Shen Gongbao interrupted him. "Do not take this lightly. My words carry great weight. As you embark on this journey, you may encounter numerous opportunities alongside formidable challenges. If you face an insurmountable enemy, do not engage in folly." Shen Gongbao understood that both of his disciples were endowed with significant fortune. Yet, the tribulations of fate were like surging undercurrents, unfathomable and perilous. A moment's carelessness, even with auspiciousness on their side, could lead to dire consequences. In contrast, Nezha's adventurous spirit often led him into precarious situations due to his audacity. Ao Bing, having been rigorously trained in the Dragon Palace since childhood, was composed and calm in the face of challenges. Therefore, Shen Gongbao held greater assurance in Ao Bing compared to Nezha. Consequently, Shen Gongbao raised his hand, and from his palm emerged a talisman radiating with a crimson lightning aura. He solemnly presented the talisman to Ao Bing and declared, "Binger, this is a life-preserving talisman. Should you find yourself in dire straits, shatter it to ensure your safety." Upon finishing, a glimmer appeared between his brows, and a fragment of his divine consciousness emerged, merging with Ao Bing's mind. This fragment possessed Shen Gongbao's full strength at its zenith. Due to the constraints of time, once activated, it can only exist for half an hour. Upon witnessing this, Nezha's eyes widened in surprise as he exclaimed, "Master, this is unfair. Why does he possess such a treasure while I do not?" Shen Gongbao shot him a stern look and reprimanded, "You little rascal, how can you be so oblivious?" Ao Bing, being composed, naturally puts my mind at ease. If you can relieve my worries, would I ever treat you unjustly? Focus on your training, and when you make progress, rewards shall follow. Although Nezha felt a pang of resentment, he dared not retort further and muttered, "Fine, I shall rely on myself and still thrive." Shen Gongbao replied with seriousness, "You two may now set off. I will keep a watchful eye on you from the shadows. Remember, the world is perilous. Tread with caution." Nezha and Ao Bing exchanged glances, then respectfully bowed to Shen Gongbao before striding down the mountain. As they departed, Shen Gongbao mused, "Nezha is unruly and acts without method. I must oversee him personally." With that thought, he transformed into a fleeting light, almost invisible to the naked eye, and concealed himself within the void, silently tailing Nezha. He intended to intervene at a critical moment to ensure Nezha's safety. The scene shifted. Upon descending the mountain, Nezha was filled with curiosity and excitement, as if his feet were equipped with springs, bouncing joyfully along the way. His bright eyes sparkled with wonder at the world around him, and he eagerly approached passers-by to inquire about intriguing tales. He arrived at a bustling little town where the streets were alive with activity. The diverse attire and wares of the townsfolk dazzled him, making him wish for more eyes to take it all in. As he wandered, Nezha spotted a hunter resting on a stone by the roadside, with a bow, arrows, and game beside him. His eyes lit up, and he hurried over, cheerfully asking, "Uncle, you must know many fascinating stories from your years of hunting in the mountains. Please share some with me." The hunter looked up, amused by Nezha's lively demeanor, and nodded with a smile. Clearing his throat, the hunter began recounting various tales from the mountains, which captivated Nezha. Suddenly, the hunter's expression shifted, and he lowered his voice, saying, "Young man, not far from here, a formidable demon has recently emerged from that mountain. It often descends to harm people, disturbing the peace of the surrounding villagers. Everyone is quite frightened and scarcely dares to venture out during the day." Upon hearing this, Nezha's eyes widened in shock, and a surge of adrenaline coursed through him. His sense of justice ignited like a roaring flame within his heart. How dare such a demon run rampant in broad daylight? I, Nezha, shall confront it, he resolved inwardly, clenching his fists. "Thank you, uncle," he said with a bow of gratitude to the hunter. Eagerly, he quickened his pace, rushing towards the direction indicated by the hunter. The cave of the demon lay concealed at the bottom of a profound valley. From a distance, the entrance was shrouded in thick, inky mist, exuding a nauseating stench that was repulsive. Yet, Nezha felt no fear. Instead, a surge of exhilarating challenge surged within him. This den of demons seemed to possess some intrigue. But to me, it was merely a trifling matter. Taking a deep breath, he plunged into the miasma. Upon entering the cave, he found himself enveloped in darkness and an eerie atmosphere. The walls flickered with strange, ghostly lights, occasionally echoing chilling sounds that sent shivers down his spine. Though a slight tension gripped his heart, his indomitable spirit propelled him forward without a hint of retreat. What is there to fear? The greater the danger, the more it attests to my prowess. He ventured deeper along the winding passage, the sound of his footsteps resonating sharply in the stillness. At last, he arrived at the abyss of the cave, where he boldly proclaimed, "Evil demon, today I shall bring you down." No sooner had the words left his mouth than a shadow darted swiftly from the depths of the cave, landing before him. It was none other than the Bone Demon King, possessing a cultivation level surpassing Nezha's by a minor realm, a formidable foe indeed. Towering in stature, the Bone Demon King was composed entirely of chilling white bones, emanating a pungent odor reminiscent of a creature risen from the depths of hell. Its eyes glowed with a blood-red light, akin to two burning orbs of ghostly fire, and it wielded a massive bone club, dripping with a revolting green viscous fluid. "Humph! A foolish child, daring to intrude upon my domain." The Bone Demon King let out a shrill, sinister laugh, its voice echoing like the hooting of an owl throughout the cave. Undeterred, Nezha grinned, revealing his signature tiger teeth, and retorted loudly, "Monster, today marks your demise." At that moment, Nezha stood unaccompanied by any treasures, yet his fighting spirit remained undiminished. With bare fists and feet enveloped in swirling heat, he charged fiercely towards the Bone Demon King. In response, the Bone Demon King swung its club, conjuring a powerful gust of chilling wind aimed directly at Nezha. Agile in his movements, Nezha swiftly sidestepped, inwardly relieved at his narrow escape. That demon truly possessed immense strength. The club grazed the edge of his clothing, crashing into the ground and creating a substantial crater. Seizing the opportunity, Nezha surged forward, his arms igniting with blazing flames, a manifestation of his innate power over fire. Radiating intense heat as he reached for the Bone Demon King's arm. The Bone Demon King snorted disdainfully, swinging its arm and sending Nezha flying several yards away. Regaining his balance mid-air, Nezha felt a swell of defiance. Gritting his teeth, he charged once more at the Bone Demon King. The demon's aura churned violently around it, a surging tide of black energy sweeping toward Nezha. Although he was a being of innate spiritual essence, his physicality superior to that of ordinary men, the overwhelming torrent of demonic energy pressed heavily upon him. The malevolent energy incessantly corroded his skin, each inch feeling as though pierced by a myriad of needles. Nezha felt a sharp pang within his heart, yet he clenched his teeth, propelled by an indomitable will, as he trudged forward through the suffocating darkness. The battle grew increasingly fierce, and Nezha's body gradually became adorned with wounds, his garments stained crimson with blood. The evil Bone Demon King, while launching relentless attacks, taunted, "Little brat, do you now comprehend my might? Submit and embrace your demise." Fury ignited within Nezha's heart. "Monster, do not revel in your triumph. I have yet to unleash my full power. The evil-boned Demon King, growing more incensed as his assaults proved ineffective, wielded his spiked club with greater speed and strength. Under this tempestuous onslaught, Nezha found himself in perilous situations time and again, narrowly avoiding fatal strikes, yet he persevered with unwavering determination. At last, as the evil-boned Demon King prepared for another all-out strike, Nezha seized the moment, unleashing all his might. Flames enveloped him, reaching an apex, and he surged towards the evil-boned Demon King. Caught off guard, the demon was engulfed by Nezha's flames, emitting a howl of agony. Following this, Nezha summoned every ounce of energy, delivering a powerful punch to the demon's skull. With a resounding thud, the evil-boned Demon King collapsed, transforming into a heap of bones. Nezha triumphed over the evil-boned Demon King, yet he found himself utterly exhausted, collapsing to the ground. After a considerable time, he regained his composure and dragged his weary body deeper into the demonic lair. Before a stone wall emanating a faint glow, Nezha sat cross-legged. This battle has fostered my growth immensely. I must contemplate deeply and become stronger. He quieted his mind and began his meditative practice. In the shadows, Shen Gongbao observed the entire struggle of this underdog confrontation. Witnessing Nezha, with sheer willpower, vanquish the evil-boned Demon King, who stood at the pinnacle of the human immortal realm, his heart brimmed with emotion. Truly, as a reincarnation of the Demon Pill, Nezha possessed formidable physical strength and an unyielding spirit. Given time, he would undoubtedly shine brilliantly in this world. Shen Gongbao pondered privately, his eyes filled with hopes for Nezha's future. After all, the stronger Nezha became, the more potent the returns from the system he received. However, despite Nezha's hard-won victory, a critical issue was revealed. He currently lacked effective magical artifacts, often achieving little against formidable foes. Shen Gongbao understood the significance of these artifacts for practitioners and promptly made a decision. He quietly approached Nezha's training site, muttering incantations as he waved his hand. Threads of spiritual power intertwined to form an invisible net, enveloping the area in layers, creating a robust protective barrier. This barrier not only shielded against external prying, but also withstood a degree of attack, ensuring Nezha could cultivate undisturbed. Once the preparations were complete, Shen Gongbao gazed towards the horizon, contemplating. Although Nezha is extraordinarily gifted, his lack of artifacts means he can only exert 2 or 3 parts of his full combat potential. To secure Nezha's position amidst the calamity of the divine tribulation, it is imperative to procure several extraordinary treasures for him. It appears that the time has come to seek assistance from the primordial lord in the celestial realm of Qingwei among the 36 heavens. With this thought, Shen Gongbao channeled his mystical energy, instantly transforming into a radiant streak of light, darting towards the direction of the 36 heavens. Chapter 18. The Jade Void Palace. At this moment, within the Jade Clear Palace, enveloped in swirling mists and auspicious auras, the primordial lord had returned to Qingwei Heaven. Seated upon the majestic throne of the Jade Void Palace, his demeanor was solemn, and his visage resembled the hardest jade crafted from the very essence of the universe, stern and majestic. The primordial lord parted his lips, slowly issuing an edict. I shall impart the teachings to you, my disciples, within the Jade Void Palace. All disciples of the Chan Sect may listen. His voice resonated like a great bell, imbued with the primordial power of the cosmos. It pierced through layers of space, echoing throughout the heavens and earth, instantly reaching all corners of the Chan Sect. Wherever his voice traveled, the winds ceased and the birds fell silent, as if the entire world fell into a tranquil solemnity under its weight. In an instant, the disciples of the Chan Sect responded in unison. The revered Huanglong Jinren, the formidable Jiu Lushan, and the other 12 golden immortals of the Chan Sect, all of whom possessed great powers, were quick to act. Huanglong Jinren flickered and transformed into a beam of golden light, moving with such swiftness that it resembled a shooting star racing across the night sky. As he passed, the air was torn asunder, producing a sharp whistling sound. Jiu Lushan utilized the art of earth escape, making the ground appear as his pathway. His form shimmered within the earthy glow, vanishing and reappearing as he hastened towards the Jade Void Palace. Meanwhile, Yuding Jinren stood upon his celestial sword, which glimmered with a fierce radiance, trailing a long streak of light akin to a bolt of lightning as he sped away. Each of them executed their techniques, transforming into streaks of light, arriving first at the Jade Void Palace. They entered in an orderly fashion, their expressions reverent, their eyes filled with admiration and awe for the primordial lord. Upon entering the Jade Void Palace, they swiftly took their designated positions, exuding a dignified and solemn presence. characteristic of the Chan Sect's elite. Each stood as upright as a pine tree, their garments gently swaying in the faint breeze of the grand hall. Yet none displayed the slightest hint of laxity or carelessness. Soon after, Shen Gongbao's figure appeared before the Jade Void Palace. He strode in with confidence, his mystical energy subtly rippling around him, akin to hidden currents beneath a tranquil lake. However, the atmosphere shifted dramatically the moment he stepped into the Jade Void Palace. Taiji Jinren, who had been engaged in quiet conversation with Jiu Lushan, caught sight of Shen Gongbao from the corner of his eye, and his expression transformed into one of intense fury. His eyes widened, seemingly ablaze, fixated on Shen Gongbao with a glare that felt as though it could consume him whole. His fists, unconsciously clenched within his sleeves, turned pale from the pressure, as if he were on the verge of confronting Shen Gongbao. In his heart, the incident of Shen Gongbao seizing Nezha felt like a sharp thorn embedded deep within, leaving him perpetually troubled. Nezha was a disciple he held in high regard, exceptionally gifted and laden with immense potential, yet was forcibly taken away by Shen Gongbao. How could he possibly swallow that bitterness? Guang Qingzi frowned slightly, his broad forehead creasing into a river-like pattern, as he shook his head gently, seemingly displeased with Shen Gongbao's arrival. As the foremost of the 12 golden immortals, Guang Qingzi valued the rules and order of the teaching. In his eyes, Shen Gongbao's approach was always unconventional, markedly different from the orthodox disciples, resulting in his persistent disdain for Shen Gongbao. Shijingzi maintained a cold demeanor, clad in a crimson Taoist robe, emanating an aura that kept others at bay. His gaze swept past Shen Gongbao and quickly averted, as if Shen Gongbao were a figure of no consequence, stirring not even a ripple in his eyes. Puxian Jinren wore a faintly mocking smile, his lips curling slightly, with arms crossed and head tilted slightly upward. His eyes brimmed with contempt. The other golden immortals displayed varying degrees of disdain. Some wore expressions of scorn, while others appeared indifferent, as if Shen Gongbao did not exist in their realm. Despite their differing reactions, a palpable air of contempt lingered in their gazes directed at Shen Gongbao. To them, Shen Gongbao's style was distinctly divergent, and his constant disputes with them made it challenging to garner their acceptance. Feeling the weight of their stares, Shen Gongbao's heart tightened imperceptibly. After all, facing such hostility from numerous fellow disciples would unnerve anyone. Yet, he quickly regained his composure, reflecting that he was no longer the same person he once was. There was no need to fear them any longer. With head held high and chest out, he disregarded their attitudes and strode confidently towards his designated spot. Witnessing Shen Gongbao's calmness and self-assuredness, a wave of confusion washed over the others. In the past, Shen Gongbao had always exhibited a timid demeanor when confronted with his fellow disciples, speaking with reverence and caution, fearful of offending anyone, whether in discussions or daily interactions. He had appeared exceedingly humble, a posture they had long grown accustomed to. However, the Shen Gongbao standing before them now held his back straight, his eyes radiating a newfound determination, completely devoid of his former timidity. Puxian Jinren's irritation reached a boiling point at Shen Gongbao's audacity. His brows knitted tightly, the wrinkles on his forehead deep as ravines, a glint of cold fury flashing in his eyes. Stepping forward, he allowed a surge of his magical power to emanate, the overwhelming pressure of a peak Tai golden immortal engulfing the atmosphere. His Taoist robe billowed as if stirred by an unseen wind, rustling ominously. The venerable Puxian Jinren let out a cold huff, his voice resonating like a mighty bell as he proclaimed, "Shen Gongbao, do not forget your own standing. We are the direct disciples of our revered master, entrusted with the noble duty of propagating the teachings, and our status is exalted. You, however, are merely an ordinary disciple within this sect, daring to act so brazenly in the presence of us within the Yusu Palace? Today, I shall impart a lesson upon you, so that you may understand the distinctions of rank." His words brimmed with an air of superiority, as he sought to suppress Shen Gongbao with the overwhelming pressure of a pinnacle Tai golden immortal. Yet, upon hearing Puxian Jinren's remarks, Shen Gongbao not only showed no sign of retreat, but erupted into a hearty laugh. His laughter echoed throughout the Yusu Palace, filled with confidence and defiance, slicing through the previously tense atmosphere like a sharp blade. As the laughter subsided, Shen Gongbao's gaze became electrifying, locking onto Puxian Jinren as he coldly responded, "Puxian, do not attempt to belittle me with your so-called status. What does it matter to be a direct disciple? In this sect, does rank truly serve as the measure of all? You and I are both disciples of our master. Though I, Shen Gongbao, have conducted myself discreetly in the past, it does not imply that I am of lesser worth." His words were incisive, each statement striking like a dagger into the hearts of those present. His eyes were resolute, devoid of fear. In that moment, he seemed transformed, no longer the easily manipulated ordinary disciple. The other golden immortals looked on in astonishment at Shen Gongbao's retort. They had anticipated him to bow in submission under Pu Xianjunren's pressure, yet were taken aback by his audacity to confront him so directly. Curiosity stirred within their minds, each eager to discern the origins and audacity of Shen Gongbao that allowed him to stand against Pu Xianjunren. The atmosphere in the hall grew taut, akin to a drawn bowstring. All present held their breath, their gazes fixed upon the confrontation between Shen Gongbao and Pu Xianjunren. The latter trembled with rage at Shen Gongbao's words. His face turned a deep shade of ashen blue, veins bulging on his forehead like wrathful serpents. "You audacious Shen Gongbao! How dare you insult me so today?" Pu Xianjunren roared, his true fury ignited. His magical energy surged wildly, poised to teach Shen Gongbao a lesson. Just as he was about to strike, a wave of Taoist resonance suddenly rippled through the void, akin to a massive stone cast into a still lake, sending concentric waves radiating outward. Within that resonance lay the most primal forces of the universe, causing every disciple present to feel a tremor deep within their souls. In an instant, the entire Yusu Palace was enveloped by a majestic yet tranquil aura, warm and powerful, as if it could embrace all that exists. Everyone felt their spirits quake, instinctively holding their breath, their faces awash with reverence. Soon after, a brilliant golden light descended from the heavens. Amidst the radiant glow, the figure of the primordial supreme being gradually materialized. He donned a robe of deep yellow, intricately embroidered with celestial bodies and the landscapes of mountains and rivers. Each thread seemed to encapsulate the profound truths of the universe, as if narrating the genesis and evolution of existence itself. The primordial supreme being traversed the void, each step blossoming into a resplendent golden lotus. With every footfall, a magnificent flower unfurled beneath him, its luminous petals shimmering with countless starlights, releasing waves of ethereal fragrance. This aroma appeared to possess the power to purify souls, instilling tranquility within the hearts of those present. His visage bore an ancient and solemn grace, with eyes that mirrored the depths of the cosmos. A mere glance from him could send shivers through one's very essence. His hair, as white as snow, was neatly gathered at the back of his head, while a few strands danced in the breeze, further enhancing his otherworldly aura. The atmosphere fell into a profound silence. All present prostrated themselves on the ground, too awed to meet the gaze of the primordial supreme being. The entire Jade Void Palace was enveloped in an air of solemnity, as if time itself had come to a standstill. In this moment, the disciples of the Chan Sect, including Tai Junren and Pu Xianjunren, knelt humbly on one knee, bowing their heads in reverence, not daring to breathe. Under the imposing presence of this celestial sage, their usual pride and conflicts appeared utterly trivial. The palace was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be distinctly heard. The primordial supreme being sat majestically upon the exalted throne of the Jade Void Palace, his gaze sweeping over the kneeling disciples. He then gently closed his eyes and began to impart his teachings. In an instant, a powerful and majestic resonance of the Tao surged through the palace like a tidal wave. This resonance seemed to originate from the very dawn of the universe, imbued with the most fundamental laws and mysteries of existence. Each word he uttered was accompanied by extraordinary visions. In the void, fragments of the 3,000 heavenly laws flickered slowly, as if the mountains, rivers, sun, moon, and stars were being born and perishing within their midst, illustrating the cycle of life and death in the cosmos. The 12 golden immortals, including Guang Qingzi, Yuding Jinren, and Tai Jinren, who usually prided themselves on their profound cultivation and ease of understanding various Taoist teachings, found themselves ensnared in a fog of bewilderment beneath the inscrutable wisdom of the primordial supreme being. Though the teachings were within reach, they felt an overwhelming complexity that eluded their grasp. Frowning in concentration, they endeavored to comprehend, yet the resonance seemed to deliberately evade them. Whenever they thought they had seized a thread of understanding, it would dissipate in an instant. Although the primordial supreme being spoke with his eyes closed, he was acutely aware of the disciples' struggles. Secretly lamenting, he recognized that despite their designation as the 12 golden immortals, renowned throughout the primordial realm, their ignorance in the face of such profound truth was disheartening. The next great calamity of the primordial world loomed ominously ahead, fraught with uncertainty and peril. Not long ago, the primordial earth underwent a profound transformation, giving rise to an array of extraordinary occurrences. Even with the collaboration of the other 5 saints in their efforts to decipher the entirety of the impending tribulation, the full scope of the calamity remained elusive. Within this cataclysm, countless beings would face trials of life and death, where a moment's negligence could lead to utter obliteration. As a significant force in the primordial realm, the Chan Sect bore a monumental responsibility. If these disciples could not rapidly enhance their prowess and grasp more profound doctrines, how could they safeguard the Chan Sect and fulfill their mission amidst the tribulation? Yet, these disciples appeared remarkably obtuse, which left him somewhat dissatisfied. Nevertheless, the primordial lord understood that the path of cultivation is inherently arduous, with each individual's fortune and comprehension varying greatly. He opened his eyes, casting a discerning gaze over the assembly, a glimmer of hope flickering within. He yearned for a disciple to emerge at this critical juncture. At that moment, a thunderous roar erupted, reminiscent of the primordial chaos at the dawn of creation, shattering the once tense atmosphere of the Jade Void Palace. Instantly, the entire edifice trembled violently. Strange beams of light converged from all directions, rushing towards Shen Gongbao. The aura surrounding Shen Gongbao became tumultuous in an instant, as the frigid and fiery laws erupted uncontrollably. Around his form, a raging inferno surged on one side, while icy spires radiated an overwhelming chill on the other. These two diametrically opposed forces clashed and intertwined. Beneath this chaotic exterior, within the depths of Shen Gongbao's consciousness, three innate virtues manifested like agile dragons, weaving silently. They emanated a gentle golden radiance, each beam infused with tremendous power. This force, though tender, was resilient, akin to a spring breeze nurturing the earth, silently nourishing Shen Gongbao's spirit. It covertly assisted him in comprehending the enigmatic teachings of the primordial lord. As time flowed, Shen Gongbao's condition became increasingly remarkable. Above his head, three resplendent lotus flowers gradually unfurled, each showcasing hues of gold, silver, and purple. Each flower was the size of a grinding disc, with petals crystalline and translucent. These three blossoms represented the embodiment of essence, energy, and spirit. Simultaneously, Shen Gongbao's pinnacle of the early Tai golden immortal realm was laid bare without reservation. A formidable and majestic aura radiated from him, captivating the attention of those who had been diligently contemplating the teachings. They involuntarily turned their gazes toward him. Shock was etched on every face, eyes wide in disbelief, mouths agape as if witnessing the most inconceivable spectacle. Tai Jinren's expression was one of incredulity, a flicker of jealousy and anger flashing in his eyes. In his heart, Shen Gongbao had always been the downtrodden junior he looked down upon. Yet now he shone brilliantly within the Jade Void Palace. While comprehending the profound teachings, he simultaneously manifested such a formidable presence, leaving him at a loss for acceptance. The 12 golden immortals, including Guang Chengzi and Yu Dingjinren, displayed expressions of astonishment. They exchanged glances, their eyes brimming with confusion and shock. They could scarcely fathom that Shen Gongbao, who typically remained unassuming, harbored such profound depths. In an instant, the Yusu Palace buzzed with discussion, all eyes fixated on Shen Gongbao. Even Yuan Shi Tianzun slightly opened his eyes, a flicker of surprise glimmering within. A dazzling brilliance radiated from the three flowers atop Shen Gongbao's head, a splendor unprecedented in its intensity, nearly blinding those present. The petals unfurled layer upon layer, each imbued with boundless Taoist essence, seemingly narrating the birth and evolution of the cosmos. The hues of the three flowers grew increasingly vibrant, culminating in a full bloom of the highest order, 12th rank. This spectacle momentarily stilled the breaths of all in attendance. The third rank, three flowers, in the primordial world, were already a mark of exceptional talent, signifying the potential to attain the golden immortal realm and savor the fruits of immortality. The sixth rank, three flowers, were even rarer, indicating the qualifications of a Tai golden immortal, a prodigy highly regarded among the various sections. As for the ninth rank, three flowers, they represented the qualifications of a great Luo golden immortal, a rarity even in the vastness of the primordial realm. The three flowers atop the 12 golden immortals of the Chan teaching were merely ninth rank. Yet now, in the shadow of Shen Gongbao's astonishing 12th rank, they appeared diminished. It is essential to understand that the 12th rank, three flowers, embodied the essence of a primordial great Luo golden immortal, marking the potential of a saint. This signified that should Shen Gongbao continue to flourish, he might very well ascend to the realm of saints, standing alongside Yuan Shi Tianzun and the other 6 saints. Guang Chengzi's eyes filled with disbelief, his previously composed demeanor cracking as he murmured, "How is this possible? Shen Gongbao possesses such talent?" Yu Dingjinren's eyes widened. and the whisk in his hand slipped from his grip unconsciously. He opened his mouth, yet words eluded him for a considerable time. Tai Jinren's countenance darkened significantly. His fists clenched tightly, knuckles whitening from the strain. Jealousy surged within him like a tidal wave, nearly overwhelming. The other golden immortals could not contain their exclamations. Some gaped in disbelief, unable to close their mouths, while others exhibited expressions of terror, as if confronted by a fearsome beast. Still, others gazed at Shen Gongbao with reverence, instinctively bowing in his direction. The Yusu Palace descended into chaos, as all eyes remained riveted on Shen Gongbao, unable to divert their attention even for a moment. Chapter 20. The Change of Fate. Yuan Shitian sat majestically upon the lofty throne, surrounded by an ethereal and elusive aura. He seemed to embody the very essence of the cosmic principles. His gaze was profound, akin to an unfathomable abyss, revealing a myriad of emotions, surprise, solace, and a hint of inscrutable concern. Yuan Shitian's eyes blazed with intensity as he fixated on Shen Gongbao, who had astonishingly manifested the 12 flowers atop his head. Such fortuitous occurrences were no mere coincidence. They hinted at extraordinary encounters. The path of cultivation was inherently rife with serendipity, where both luck and prowess held equal significance. Shen Gongbao's present display was indeed a testament to his own fortitude and destiny. Contemplating this, Yuan Shitian regarded Shen Gongbao with newfound respect, a subtle approval blossoming within his heart. However, as a sage, he had long mastered the art of concealing his emotions, maintaining a facade of tranquility despite the turmoil within. In stark contrast, Tai Jinren was engulfed in inner turmoil, akin to a swarm of ants scuttling across his heart. He stood frozen, his eyes brimming with astonishment and trepidation, as if witnessing the most unfathomable spectacle. His gaze could not stray from the mesmerizing 12 flowers radiating from Shen Gongbao. He could scarcely fathom that the once unremarkable Shen Gongbao, whom he had deemed inconsequential, possessed such exceptional insight. The formidable talent displayed by the 12 flowers surpassed even his own abilities. Reflecting on their previous encounters, it became evident that Shen Gongbao had subtly outperformed him. Now, as Shen Gongbao absorbed the profound teachings within the Jade Void Palace, any further gains would likely propel his strength to unprecedented heights. This realization tightened Tai Jinren's chest, as if a colossal stone pressed heavily upon it, rendering his breaths labored. Similarly, Pu Xianjinren was consumed by worry, his brow furrowed deeply, resembling a pronounced character capable of squashing a fly. He understood the extraordinary potential signified by the 12 flowers, which often dictated a cultivator's future in the realm. The 12 flowers represented the pinnacle of legendary prowess. He was acutely aware that if Shen Gongbao were to transform this innate talent into tangible strength, his status within the Chan teaching would undoubtedly soar. Having long secured his position through the peak of Tai golden immortal power, he reveled in the reverence of others. Yet now, with Shen Gongbao's sudden rise, akin to an unexpected challenger, the future landscape appeared increasingly unpredictable. Amidst the complex gazes of the onlookers, Shen Gongbao was absorbed in the comprehension of Yuan Shitian's teachings, seemingly detached from the outside world, enveloped in a realm uniquely his own. His aura grew ever more robust, solidifying his already formidable position at the initial peak of the Tai golden immortal realm, nurtured by the profound rhythms of the Tao. The radiance of the 12 flowers atop his head became increasingly subdued, no longer as dazzling as before, yet imbued with a newfound profundity. The radiance seemed to draw inward, continuously honing the spirit of Shen Gongbao, rendering it ever more formidable. As time gracefully flowed onward, the aura surrounding Shen Gongbao gradually transformed into one of steadiness and weightiness, akin to a towering mountain that instilled a sense of awe. He had seamlessly merged the insights gained from his contemplation with his own realm, resulting in a further enhancement of his strength, with each cell within him rejoicing, brimming with vitality. At last, the reflection came to a close. Shen Gongbao slowly opened his eyes, a glimmer of sagacity flashing within them. Yuan Shitian's gaze swept solemnly over the disciples gathered below, his expression tinged with gravity. He inquired, "My dear disciples, in recent days, have you perceived the changes in the heavenly cycles?" His voice resonated like a grand bell, imbued with an infinite majesty, echoing through the halls of Yusu Palace. Each word struck heavily against the hearts of the disciples, sending ripples of unease through their minds. The recent days he referred to were, in fact, several years ago, for in the celestial realm, a day equates to a year on earth. A few years prior, Shen Gongbao had taken Ao Bing and Nezha as disciples, and his understanding of the icy laws had precipitated alterations in the heavenly cycles. This was precisely the matter to which Yuan Shi Tianzun was alluding. Upon hearing this, the disciples furrowed their brows, as if shrouded by an invisible gloom. In those recent days, the fluctuations of spiritual energy within the primordial realm had been decidedly abnormal. The previously tranquil and orderly spiritual essence had become restless, surging tumultuously at times, only to fall into eerie silence at others. The celestial phenomena also exhibited peculiar transformations. Vibrant rays of light would occasionally grace the sky, while at other times, dark clouds would gather, accompanied by thunder and lightning, yet not a single drop of rain would fall. They were indeed aware of these anomalies. But the intricacies of the heavenly cycles were deeply rooted in the mysteries of the universe, eluding their comprehension. Given their current prowess, it was nearly impossible to glimpse the underlying secrets, let alone clearly discern even a fragment of it. Even a vague extrapolation of its general trajectory seemed insurmountably challenging. However, since their master had posed a question, it was only fitting that they respond. Guang Qingzi stepped forward first, his stature tall and upright, reminiscent of an ancient pine. He slightly bowed, clasping his hands in respect, and replied, "Master, I have indeed sensed some irregularities in the fluctuations of spiritual energy across the heavens and earth. Yet, the changes in the heavenly cycles are exceedingly profound, and I, a humble disciple, find it difficult to fully grasp their essence at this moment." His words were cautiously phrased, ambiguous enough to indicate his awareness while deftly sidestepping the crux of the matter. In his heart, he recognized the complexity of the changes in the heavenly cycles. A misstep could lead to displeasure from his master. Witnessing this, Yuding Jinren promptly stepped forward as well, echoing, "Master, what senior brother Guang Qingzi has stated is indeed accurate. I too have been observing diligently during this period. Yet the changes in the heavenly cycles are shrouded in a dense fog, and with my limited abilities, I find it challenging to disperse the mist and behold the clarity beyond." His response, too, was vague, with a hint of helplessness flickering in his eyes. He was acutely aware of the insignificance of his own strength in the face of this celestial change. Rather than speaking recklessly, he chose to maintain silence and await his master's guidance. Although Tai Zhenren felt a tinge of apprehension in his heart, he steeled himself and stepped forward, saying, "Master, I too have sensed some anomalies in the celestial phenomena, yet the intricacies of these changes are profoundly complex, and I find it exceedingly difficult to grasp even a fraction." As he spoke, he discreetly observed the expression of Yuan Shi Tianzun, silently praying that his master would not press too hard for answers. He reflected on his previous blunders, feeling a deep sense of regret, fearful that he might again face his master's reprimand for an inadequate response. Yuan Shi Tianzun listened quietly to the responses of the three, his countenance gradually darkening. Displeasure was evident in his eyes as he shook his head slightly, letting out a soft sigh. "As distinguished elites of my teaching, you are entrusted with the weighty responsibility of safeguarding the doctrine and adhering to the celestial order. Now, as the celestial changes threaten the fate of the primordial realm, it is disheartening that you grasp only the surface, failing to delve deeper into such significant matters. If this continues, how can we hope to protect our teachings amidst the impending calamities?" After speaking, his gaze swept over the assembly, tinged with disappointment. At that moment, Shen Gongbao took a deep breath and stepped forward. His expression grave, he declared, "Master, esteemed brothers, in my humble opinion, this recent upheaval is inextricably linked to the forthcoming cataclysm. With the calamity approaching, every anomaly in the world may serve as a portent. If we do not prepare ourselves promptly and respond with our full strength, our doctrine may face dire peril in its struggle for survival amid the tribulations." His words resonated with authority, reflecting profound insight into the situation and deep concern for the future of their teachings. As soon as he spoke, it was as though a massive stone had been cast into a tranquil lake, sending ripples across the surface. Many disciples of the doctrine displayed anger, commencing to berate Shen Gongbao. "Shen Gongbao, cease your reckless speculation. The matter of the calamity is enigmatic and unfathomable. How dare you presume to interpret it? Even if there are changes, it is not your place to incite fear and disturb the hearts of the people." Voices clashed in heated exchange, each disciple eager to drown out Shen Gongbao's assertions. Their gazes were laden with disdain and disapproval towards him. In their minds, Shen Gongbao's manner had always diverged from the norm, and now his astonishing words were met with skepticism. Just as the uproar reached a fever pitch, Yuan Shi Tianzun raised his hand slightly and cleared his throat. This seemingly ordinary gesture struck like thunder in the ears of the assembly. An immediate silence enveloped the room, as everyone held their breath, time appearing to stand still in that moment. Their eyes turned in unison toward Yuan Shitianzun, filled with reverence. The hall was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Chapter 21. The dust settles. Yuan Shitianzun gazed at Shen Gongbao with a tranquil demeanor and slowly inquired, Shen Gongbao, what is your perspective on this matter? Please elaborate. Though his gaze was calm, it bore an undertone of anticipation for Shen Gongbao's forthcoming remarks. Upon hearing the unexpectedly gentle inquiry from the primordial beginning True One towards Shen Gongbao, Tai Jinren was immediately engulfed by an unnameable fury, unable to contain himself any longer. He fixed a fierce glare upon Shen Gongbao and erupted in a vehement tirade. Shen Gongbao, you treacherous disciple. Are you once again attempting to bewilder the masses with your malevolent words? Cease your nonsensical prattle, lest you mislead our esteemed master. His visage contorted with rage, his eyes brimming with disdain and repulsion towards Shen Gongbao, as if he longed to expel him from the Jade Void Palace at that very moment. Shen Gongbao paid no heed to Tai Jinren's vitriol. Maintaining his composure, he stepped forward respectfully and remarked, Master, the matter of the calamity is intricately woven. A single thread pulled may unravel the entire tapestry. The crux lies in our strategy. The list of deities emerges in accordance with the calamity, yet the positions are limited. If our sect acts recklessly without careful deliberation, it would be a grave misstep. As one of the foremost sects of the primordial era, our foundation is profound and our talents abound. We ought to seize the initiative during this calamity, guiding the other sects in alignment with the celestial order. However, with the current multitude of unforeseen variables, if we do not devise a prudent plan, we risk losing a precious opportunity. As he spoke, Shen Gongbao discreetly observed the expression of the primordial beginning True One. Noticing a slight nod from the master, he felt a surge of elation within. He realized his flattery was having its intended effect. The primordial beginning True One, undisturbed by the words, slightly inclined his head and continued to inquire, in that case, what strategies do you propose for our sect? Shen Gongbao's heart leapt with delight, recognizing that the moment he had awaited had arrived. Taking a deep breath, he slowly articulated, Master, the crux of everything may well stem from the Spirit Pearl. My senior brother, Tai Jinren, was originally tasked with the matter of the Spirit Pearl, yet inadvertently transformed it into a demonic orb, resulting in its reincarnation as Nezha. This Nezha, born with formidable demonic powers and a tempestuous disposition, has already caused significant turmoil upon his arrival in the world, thus becoming a considerable variable. At the time in Shintang Pass, witnessing such circumstances left the disciples feeling utterly helpless. In the interest of the sect's greater good, I had no choice but to acquiesce and take Nezha as my disciple, hoping to guide him onto the righteous path, thus salvaging some semblance of order for our sect. At this juncture, Shen Gongbao fell to his knees with a thud, bowing his head in contrition. Master, I acted without prior consultation to accept a disciple, which was indeed a grave error. I humbly beseech your reprimand. Shen Gongbao was acutely aware that Tai Jinren's acceptance of disciples and the matter of the Spirit Pearl, though not explicitly stated within the sect, had already been part of their internal strategy. By revealing this matter, he intended to stir the waters, seeking to benefit himself, while simultaneously probing the attitude of the primordial beginning True One. Upon hearing this, the primordial beginning True One's expression grew solemn, and he fell into a brief silence. His profound gaze seemed capable of penetrating the mysteries of the universe. In that fleeting stillness, the atmosphere within the hall became increasingly oppressive, as if the very air had solidified. After a moment, the primordial beginning True One slowly turned his head to regard Tai Jinren, who was now beaded with fine droplets of sweat upon his forehead. Beads of sweat, as large as soybeans, trickled down his cheeks, falling onto the ground of the Jade Void Palace. Under the piercing gaze of the primordial lord, Tai Jinren felt an overwhelming discomfort, his heart racing tumultuously like a bucket being drawn from a well. The voice of the primordial lord, deep and authoritative, resonated as though it emerged from the depths of the abyss. Tai, is what Shen Gongbao stated true? Those few simple words struck Tai Jinren's heart like a heavy hammer. His lips quivered slightly, yearning to defend himself, yet he found no words to begin. Hesitantly, he stammered, Master, the circumstances surrounding this matter are indeed intricate. The spiritual pearl was originally, for some reason, it transformed into a demonic orb. His words came out in fragmented utterances, his gaze flickering, unable to meet the primordial lord's eyes directly. The primordial lord regarded Tai Jinren in silence, his expression growing increasingly frigid. Under the weight of this intangible pressure, Tai Junren felt as if he were ensconced in an ice cellar, a chilling dread surging from his feet to the crown of his head. He understood clearly that regardless of how convoluted the process had been, the transformation of the spiritual pearl into a demonic orb, resulting in Nezha's reincarnation as such, was an unalterable fact. At last, Tai Junren let out a deep sigh, slowly bowing his head, his voice laden with helplessness and guilt. Master, what Shen Gongbao said is indeed true. I, your disciple, have sinned. With that, he knelt down with a thud, bowing his head heavily, awaiting the primordial Lord's judgment. At that moment, his heart was filled with regret, fully aware that his blunder might have caused significant trouble for the Chan Sect and disrupted the original plans. Upon hearing Tai Junren's words, the gazes of the other 12 golden immortals converged upon him, each pair of eyes reflecting a myriad of complex emotions. Guangqingzi's expression bore a hint of disappointment. Having known Tai Junren for many years, he was well aware of his standing and capabilities within the Chan Sect. The occurrence of such an incident not only concerned Tai Junren himself, but could also potentially jeopardize the Chan Sect's strategies during the calamity. Guangqingzi shook his head slightly, a silent sigh escaping him. In Yuding Junren's eyes, there was a glimmer of surprise and confusion. He often communicated with Tai Junren and found him to be a person of considerable prudence. Thus, it was difficult for him to comprehend how such a grave mistake could be made. Meanwhile, in the gaze of Zhu Lusun, there was predominantly concern. He was acutely aware of the dangers posed by the calamity. Even the slightest variable could trigger a chain reaction, plunging the Chan Sect into peril. With Nezha's reincarnation as a demonic orb already fraught with uncertainty, failing to handle it properly could render the Chan Sect vulnerable during the calamity. At this moment, he could only await the primordial lord's final verdict, hoping that his master might show leniency, taking into account their years of master-disciple bond. The remaining 12 golden immortals, including Qi Jingzi, Huang Longjinren, and Pu Xianjinren, shared similar sentiments with Zhu Lusun. The primordial supreme being sat serenely upon his seat of law, his expression tranquil as water, as if all the myriad entities of the world lay within his grasp. How could he be unaware of the intricate twists and turns of events? With his formidable strength and profound insight, he had discerned the essence of matters from the very onset. Yet, as one of the 6 saints, his gaze remained fixed on the grand tapestry of the primordial realm. How could he be bothered to engage in tumult over trifles? With a subtle lift of his hand, he cast his gaze over Shen Gongbao and Tai Junren. His voice steady and harmonious. The transgressions of the two of you shall be temporarily absolved. Upon hearing these words, Tai Junren felt an immense weight lift from his heart, exhaling deeply as the tension in his body dissipated instantly. Shen Gongbao, however, retained his respectful demeanor, slightly bowing, and inwardly pondered. Master's magnanimous gesture is indeed commendable, validating my meticulous schemes. The primordial supreme being narrowed his eyes slightly and spoke again, his gaze fixated on Shen Gongbao. Shen Gongbao, now that matters have reached this point, what do you propose we do next? Though his tone was calm, it bore an unmistakable air of authority. Instantly, the entire Yusu palace fell into silence, with all present holding their breath, awaiting Shen Gongbao's response. Standing tall, Shen Gongbao met the gaze of the primordial supreme being with unwavering resolve, declaring without hesitation, disciple dares to request the bestowal of treasures from master. His clear voice resonated through the grand hall of Yusu Palace, reverberating in the ears of all present. At this declaration, the room was engulfed in a stunned silence. Everyone stood frozen, their faces etched with disbelief. Guangqingzi's previously composed visage cracked, his eyes widening, mouth agape, as if unable to comprehend his own auditory perceptions. The whisk in the hands of Yuding Junren slipped quietly to the ground, his eyes bulging with shock and confusion as he fixated on Shen Gongbao. Tai Junren, having just relaxed, now found himself tense once more, his eyes bulging, his expression shifting from astonishment to fury as he glared at Shen Gongbao, as though wishing to pierce him with his gaze. The other golden immortals were equally taken aback by Shen Gongbao's audacious request, rendered speechless amidst varying expressions of astonishment. Amidst the diverse reactions, the expression of the primordial supreme being remained inscrutable, calm as ever. He regarded Shen Gongbao silently, withholding an immediate response. The atmosphere within the hall grew exceedingly taut, as everyone held their breath, awaiting the supreme being's judgment, as if the very air had solidified. Fixing his piercing gaze upon Shen Gongbao, the primordial supreme being slowly inquired, Shen Gongbao, do enlighten us. Why do you seek treasures? His voice, though unhurried, carried an invisible weight, causing the hearts of those present to hang in suspense. Shen Gongbao approached with solemnity and respectfully stated, "Master, I must confess that due to an unfortunate mix-up between the Demon Pearl and the Spirit Pearl, the reincarnated Nezha still harbors lingering demonic energy within him. It is imperative that I assist him in finding the right path, tempering his heart, and guiding him through various trials. However, my own resources are woefully limited, and I am unable to provide him with suitable magical artifacts. At present, Nezha possesses immense potential, yet lacks the powerful tools necessary for his journey, which may expose him to considerable dangers. I implore you, Master, to bestow upon him a treasure to lend him your support." Shen Gongbao's earnest words conveyed his deep concern for Nezha and his unwavering commitment to nurturing talent for the teachings. The Celestial Master listened quietly to Shen Gongbao's discourse, a subtle smile gracing his lips, imbued with profound significance. In the heart of the primordial Celestial Master, Shen Gongbao's entreaties were not the crux of the matter. As a sage, he was already well aware of the grand design behind the deification. Nezha was a crucial element in this endeavor, directly influencing the trajectory of the impending calamity. Thus, no misstep could be afforded. Previously, the primordial Celestial Master had meticulously prepared formidable treasures, such as the Vajra bracelet, intending to entrust them to Nezha through the hands of Tai Jinren to safeguard his path to deification. Now, the only change was the intermediary, Shen Gongbao, instead of Tai Jinren. Nezha remained closely tied to the teachings, rendering this alteration inconsequential in the eyes of the primordial Celestial Master. With this thought in mind, the primordial Celestial Master slightly raised his hand. A brilliant radiance erupted from his palm, within which the Vajra bracelet and several other artifacts gradually materialized, exuding an aura of mystery and power. "Shen Gongbao, these treasures I bestow upon you. I hope you utilize them wisely to aid Nezha in his growth, enabling him to fulfill his role during the tribulations of deification." Witnessing the bestowal of treasures, Tai Jinren's countenance paled to a ghostly white. His lips quivered, and the muscles in his face twitched uncontrollably. His eyes widened in disbelief and resentment, fixated on the powerful artifacts as if they were the most precious possessions he had lost. A tide of uncontainable fury surged within him. Just as he was about to speak, the primordial Celestial Master's thunderous voice interrupted him, cold and resolute, his gaze piercing like a blade aimed at Tai Jinren. The tone carried unprecedented displeasure. "Tai, how could you confuse the Demon Pearl and the Spirit Pearl, such vital matters, leading to the current predicament of the Spirit Pearl's whereabouts? Do you understand the magnitude of this oversight on the layout of our teachings and the grand enterprise of deification?" With each word, it struck Tai Jinren's heart like a hammer, amplifying his trepidation. "As punishment, you are to go to Qianyuan Mountain and remain in isolation for 10 years to reflect on your mistakes. Unless a significant change occurs, you are not to step beyond the confines of Qianyuan Mountain." The words of the primordial Celestial Master were resolute and left no room for negotiation. This decree struck like a thunderbolt, crashing down heavily upon the head of Tai Jinren. Filled with regret, yet helpless, Tai Jinren trudged out of the Jade Void Palace, his heavy steps echoing his profound desolation. With this matter concluded, the primordial Celestial Master finished his teachings. The radiance surrounding him gradually diminished, and his imposing aura receded into the void. The disciples knelt in reverence, and after honoring their master, they slowly rose and dispersed in small groups. Guang Qingzi and Yu Dingjinren walked side by side, engaged in quiet conversation, their expressions reflecting the weight of today's events. Huang Longjinren scratched his head in confusion, trailing behind them, seemingly still savoring the profound wisdom he had just absorbed. When Shu Guangfa Tianzuan, Pu Xinjinren, and Cihang Daoren walked together, their demeanor solemn. Shen Gongbao, clutching the treasure bestowed by the primordial Celestial Master, felt an extraordinary exhilaration as he strode purposefully out of the Jade Void Palace. As he exited the grand doors, Shen Gongbao could hardly contain his eagerness to employ his newfound powers. A soft blue glow enveloped him, transforming him into a streak of light, racing towards Nezha's location. The wind whistled past his ears, and the mountains and rivers flew by beneath him. Yet, he remained undistracted, his mind filled with visions of Nezha's excitement upon receiving the treasure. Before long, Shen Gongbao arrived at the serene valley where Nezha was cultivating. The valley was tranquil and lush, adorned with flourishing flowers and grasses. Nezha sat cross-legged upon a large rock, eyes closed in deep meditation, surrounded by a faint aura of flames as he strove to master his inner power. Shen Gongbao gently descended, retracting his powers to avoid disturbing Nezha. He stood quietly to the side, watching Nezha's focused practice, his heart swelling with pride. After a moment, Nezha slowly opened his eyes, a spark of brilliance flickering within. Spotting Shen Gongbao nearby, a delighted smile broke across his face. He leapt from the rock and hurried to his master, exclaiming, "Master, you have returned." Shen Gongbao smiled and nodded, retrieving the treasure from his robe and presenting it to Nezha. "Nezha, see what I have brought you." Nezha gazed in awe at the treasure radiating with an extraordinary light, his eyes widening in astonishment. Shen Gongbao, beaming with joy, offered all the treasures to Nezha. "Each of these artifacts possesses remarkable power. You must cherish them well." "Thank you, Master, for bestowing these treasures upon me," Nezha exclaimed, boldly reaching out to grasp the items. With swift and decisive movements, he picked up the diamond bracelet, tossing it casually in his hands, and laughed. "Master, rest assured, with such powerful artifacts in my possession, their full potential will surely be unleashed." As Shen Gongbao handed over the treasured artifact to Nezha, a melodious and crisp system notification resonated in his mind. Ding. The host bestows a treasure upon Nezha, receiving 100,000-fold critical return. Acquired the innate merit spiritual treasure, the Chaos Bell. Chapter 23. The innate merit spiritual treasure. The Chaos Bell. Shen Gongbao was initially taken aback, only to be subsequently overwhelmed by an indescribable ecstasy. Before he could fully recover from his astonishment, an ancient and grand Chaos Bell materialized within his consciousness. As soon as the Chaos Bell appeared, it exuded an overwhelming and ancient aura, reminiscent of the primordial chaos that existed at the dawn of the universe. Upon closer inspection, Shen Gongbao discovered that this Chaos Bell possessed an innate merit of its own. He could not help but gasp in awe, murmuring to himself, "Incredible! It is indeed an innate merit spiritual treasure, a truly extraordinary entity." Such a treasure was exceedingly rare even in the vast expanse of the primordial world, a coveted prize that countless powerful beings yearned for but could not attain. He scrutinized the Chaos Bell, noting its immense size, comparable to that of a small mountain. The bell's surface was adorned with vivid depictions of dragons and phoenixes. The dragon coiled and twisted, its whiskers swaying in the breeze, its eyes glimmering with vitality, as if it were poised to ascend into the skies at any moment. The phoenix's plumage was resplendent, each feather shimmering with a mysterious luster, its beak slightly parted as if to burst into song. In addition to the dragon and phoenix, intricate illustrations of various beasts encircled the bell. The roars of tigers filled the forests, the lion's roar echoed through the heavens, and the lament of monkeys pierced the air. Each beast, depicted in diverse postures, some galloping, others resting, seemed imbued with a soul of its own. Interspersed among these images were countless obscure and intricate runes. Focusing intently, Shen Gongbao was delighted to discover that this was, in fact, an immensely powerful technique. When the Chaos Bell was activated with full force, it could first unleash an indestructible chaotic light barrier, enveloping the user. Any attacks from treasures, magical spells, or formidable energy fluctuations would be utterly thwarted by this barrier, rendering it the epitome of defense. Should he choose to strike, the sound emitted by the Chaos Bell would be nothing short of devastating. Wherever its chime resonated, space would contort and collapse in an instant. Enemies would find themselves ensnared in an endless whirlpool of chaos, their bodies and souls torn asunder by the overwhelming force. Moreover, the Chaos Bell possessed the ability to ensnare others. Once its trapping capability was activated, an independent microcosm would form within the bell, confining enemies within. They would become disoriented, unable to escape, left at Shen Gongbao's mercy. This Chaos Bell was undoubtedly a treasure of innate merit, embodying both offensive and defensive capabilities. The joy surging within Shen Gongbao was akin to a raging wildfire, instantly igniting his entire being, nearly engulfing him entirely. Once more, he focused his gaze upon the extraordinary Chaos Bell in his consciousness, increasingly convinced of its remarkable nature. Although the Chaos Bell may pale in comparison to the illustrious Eastern Emperor Bell in terms of fame and legendary heritage, the latter has long been celebrated since ancient times. It is said to possess the power to create and shape the cosmos, commanding the elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. Its might capable of shaking the very foundations of the primordial world. However, the Chaos Bell wielded by Shen Gongbao exudes a unique charm and formidable strength of its own. Take, for instance, the nine-dragon divine fire held by Tai Zhenren. Though this artifact can unleash a blazing inferno of 9 dragons, incinerating all in its path. When juxtaposed with the Chaos Bell, its limitations become glaringly apparent. The defensive barrier emitted by the Chaos Bell effortlessly withstands the fiery onslaught of the nine-dragon divine fire. When the divine flames make contact with the barrier, they dissipate into nothingness, akin to a droplet merging into the vast ocean. In terms of offensive capabilities, the Nine-Dragon Divine Fire can only burn at a fixed point, its range severely restricted. In contrast, the resonant chimes of the Chaos Bell propagate as sound waves in all directions, leading to spatial collapse and the annihilation of all within its reach. Its extensive range and overwhelming power far surpass those of the Nine-Dragon Divine Fire. When observing the treasures possessed by other golden immortals, most pale in the presence of the Chaos Bell. Some artifacts, while possessing unique effects, are limited in function. Others may wield considerable power, yet lack the comprehensive offensive and defensive capabilities that the Chaos Bell possesses, which can also ensnare adversaries. The more Shen Gongbao contemplated, the more exhilarated he became. Meanwhile, Nezha gripped the artifact bestowed upon him by Shen Gongbao, his eyes shimmering with fervent excitement, eager to test his prowess. He first seized the mysterious sky silk, giving it a gentle shake. Instantly, the silk danced through the air like a nimble dragon, accompanied by the sound of rushing winds. Nezha maneuvered the mysterious sky silk, occasionally launching it into the heavens, where it traced a magnificent arc across the sky, leaving a brilliant trail. At other times, he would abruptly whip the silk towards the ground, causing clouds of dust to erupt from the earth. In his hands, the mysterious sky silk seemed to come alive, each movement executed with precision that showcased its formidable power, as if Nezha had been in perfect harmony with it since birth. Next, Nezha grasped the diamond bracelet. He hurled it into the air, chanting incantations, and witnessed the bracelet expand several-fold. With a roaring wind, it plummeted towards a distant hill. A thunderous crash echoed as the hill was shattered into fragments by the force of the diamond bracelet, debris scattering spectacularly, creating an awe-inspiring scene. Observing this, Nezha exclaimed with delight, summoning the diamond bracelet back to him, repeatedly throwing it forth, experimenting with its various transformations and capabilities, each action fluid and instinctive, as though he had mastered it over many years. After a series of trials, Nezha's face flushed with exhilaration, his breath quickened, yet the joy in his eyes deepened. He turned towards Shen Gongbao, knelt with a resounding thud, and, with utmost reverence, bowed 3 times, his forehead touching the ground. Nezha lifted his head, his gaze resolutely fixed on Shen Gongbao. His voice resonated, filled with profound gratitude. Master, your gift of such a powerful treasure is an everlasting kindness that I, Nezha, shall never forget. Henceforth, I shall diligently adhere to your teachings, striving to cultivate my abilities and bring honor to you. Shen Gongbao hurriedly stepped forward to assist Nezha, his face radiating with satisfaction. He said, Nezha, rise quickly. There is no need for such formalities between us. Your determination brings me great joy. Although this treasure is formidable, it is only through the enhancement of your own strength that its true power can be realized in harmony. From now on, you must engage in even more arduous training and remain steadfast. Nezha stood up and nodded emphatically, his eyes revealing a steadfast spirit. Rest assured, Master, I shall not disappoint you. I will practice diligently day and night to unleash the full potential of this treasure. Shen Gongbao observed Nezha skillfully maneuvering the treasure, each movement showcasing his extraordinary talent, and a great weight finally lifted from his heart. Nezha, endowed with remarkable gifts, would surely shine in the primordial realms with these 2 artifacts by his side, provided he devoted himself to rigorous training. At that moment, Shen Gongbao lightly tapped his fingertip, and a manifestation of divine thought slowly emerged from his brow. Once solidified, this duplicate bore an identical likeness to Shen Gongbao, radiating a faint ethereal light as it swiftly entered Nezha's consciousness. Nezha, I leave you this manifestation of divine thought. Should you encounter peril, it shall protect you and enable communication with me, Shen Gongbao said earnestly. Nezha bowed deeply in gratitude, his eyes brimming with emotion and reluctance. Once arrangements were complete, Shen Gongbao transformed into a streak of light, racing towards the horizon. He intended to find a secluded place to deeply comprehend the techniques within the Chaos Bell. Chapter 24. Ao Bing in peril. Shen Gongbao traversed through towering mountains, keenly sensing the fluctuations of spiritual energy and the changes in terrain, in search of an ideal place for cultivation. After an indeterminate duration of flight, he beheld a perilous peak shrouded in mist. The summit rose majestically into the clouds, surrounded by sheer cliffs. Only a hidden valley wound its way into the depths of the mountain. The valley was suffused with a dense aura of spiritual energy, as if enveloped in a gossamer veil. Shen Gongbao's heart leaped with joy, convinced that this was the perfect location. With a flicker of movement, he descended into the valley and discovered a spacious, dry cave. The cave walls sparkled with glimmers of phosphorescence, resembling a starry sky. Upon entering, Shen Gongbao seated himself cross-legged, gradually closing his eyes, allowing his consciousness to immerse in his inner sea. He became enraptured in this realm, his mind intricately entwined with the runes inscribed on the chaos bell, as if engaging in a profound dialogue with the laws of heaven and earth. To Shen Gongbao, those runes appeared as enigmatic and arcane primordial scripts, initially incomprehensible in their complexity. Each symbol seems to embody the primordial codes from the very inception of the universe, emanating an ancient and enigmatic aura. Shen Gongbao held his breath, immersing himself entirely in this experience. He exerted all his magical energy, which surged through his meridians like a torrential river. He sought to establish a subtle resonance with these symbols. With his eyes tightly shut and beads of sweat dotting his forehead, each droplet glimmered under a faint glow. Time appeared to languish in an endless slowness, flowing gradually. The surroundings were enveloped in silence, interrupted only by Shen Gongbao's heavy breaths echoing in the tranquil space. It was uncertain how long he endured this. It felt like an eternity. Finally, a faint connection quietly formed between his consciousness and the symbols through his relentless pursuit. In an instant, the previously dim symbols radiated with brilliance. Their light was dazzling and intense, reminiscent of the first dawn at the universe's birth. Subsequently, a powerful torrent of information surged towards Shen Gongbao's sea of consciousness like a tidal wave. He felt as though his soul was gripped by an invisible, mighty hand, and an unprecedented, excruciating pain washed over him, nearly causing him to faint. His body trembled uncontrollably, his jaws clenched audibly, yet he persevered with extraordinary willpower. He understood that this was a critical moment in comprehending the magical arts. To relinquish now would render all his efforts futile. As the stream of information flowed incessantly, Shen Gongbao gradually dispelled the dense fog shrouding the magical arts, revealing its overarching contours. This technique unfolded before him like a grand tapestry, depicting the birth and evolution of all things in the universe. Countless intricate cultivation paths, like a labyrinth of ancient mysteries, wound through his mind. The wondrous methods of magical power operation mirrored the stars traversing the vast cosmos along specific trajectories, replete with astonishing patterns. Various marvelous transformations of supernatural abilities appeared as fantastical images, constantly flashing in his consciousness. Shen Gongbao focused intently, firmly engraving this information in his mind, repeatedly simulating and scrutinizing it, leaving no detail overlooked. He occasionally furrowed his brow or nodded slightly. Finally, after a long and arduous journey of understanding, Shen Gongbao successfully grasped this technique. Volume 1 of the Chaotic Divine Demonic Transformation Art. At the moment he fully mastered the magical arts, he felt a surge of immense, earth-shattering power coursing through him, as if he had transformed from an ordinary being into a supreme entity that governs all existence. He could vividly perceive the surrounding spiritual energy, bowing to him like loyal servants, ready to heed his every thought and whim, granting him the ability to harness the boundless powers of heaven and earth at will. As he gently channeled his mystical energy, the air around him was instantly agitated, forming small whirlpools of spiritual energy that emitted a faint whistling sound. The might of this technique was unparalleled, a marvel that transcended time and space. While cultivating the Chaos Divine Demon Creation Art, Volume 1, the magical energy within him surged forth like the primal power of ancient gods and demons, unstoppable and overwhelming. When he unleashed the derived supernatural abilities, the heavens and the earth transformed in an instant. The once azure sky was cloaked in ominous clouds. The sun and moon lost their radiance, and the stars were obscured. The winds and clouds churned violently, as if the entire world had been drawn into a grand domain ruled by chaos and divine demons, where everything could be freely created and reshaped. He envisioned mountains shifting, rivers altering their courses, as all things in the world were reinterpreted under his command. Even more astonishing was the infinite potential contained within this technique. Continuing steadfastly along this path of cultivation would empower him to break through numerous realms, ultimately reaching the extraordinary state of the great Luo Golden Immortal. Shen Gongbao was filled with astonishment, his heart brimming with emotions. He reminisced about the sacrifices he had made to acquire this scroll of technique, parting with precious treasures such as the Qianquan Circle and the Misty Silk, only to fortuitously obtain the Chaos Bell, a congenital treasure of merit, which led him to comprehend this art. The complete Chaos Divine Demon Creation Art consisted of 3 volumes. requiring the gathering of 2 additional congenital treasures of merit that shared the same chaotic origin as the Chaos Bell, meticulously blended and refined to achieve mastery. Obtaining just this 1 volume had proven to be such a formidable challenge. Shen Gongbao sighed inwardly, recognizing that if he wished to gather the remaining 2 volumes, he must exert greater effort and seek out more valuable offerings for his disciples. His thoughts raced as he directed his gaze toward the various factions of the primordial world. The 12 golden immortals, as the backbone of the Chan teaching, wielded extraordinary treasures. Guangqingzi's Fantian seal was renowned far and wide, its fearsome power capable of obliterating towering mountains into dust, shaking the very earth beneath it. Qi Jingzi's Yin-Yang mirror was equally enigmatic, possessing the ability to determine life and death, revealing its supernatural prowess in the inversion of yin and yang, leaving one defenseless. Within the heavenly court, the myriad celestial soldiers and generals wielded treasures not to be underestimated. These artifacts varied in form and function, and it was conceivable that those high-ranking celestial officials possessed artifacts capable of altering the very fabric of reality. Furthermore, the disciples of the Tongtian were numerous, each bearing an array of diverse treasures. Zhao Gongming's sea-calming pearl was immensely powerful, capable of stabilizing the 4 seas and pacifying the cosmos. Previously shining in the War of the Gods, drawing the attention of countless formidable beings. The more Shen Gongbao pondered, the more exhilarated he became. If he could acquire a few of these treasures, he might be able to leverage them as bargaining chips for obtaining congenital treasures of merit. In this manner, the progress toward gathering the remaining 2 volumes of the Chaos Divine Demon Creation Art could be significantly accelerated. As Shen Gongbao was engrossed in his grand scheme, a sudden ripple emerged from the depths of his consciousness. Startled, he regained his focus and keenly sensed the activation of a fragment of divine thought. Upon careful perception, he realized that it was Ao Bing who had inadvertently triggered the divine essence that had permeated his mind. Shen Gongbao's expression shifted as he recognized the invocation of Ao Bing's divine consciousness. This was indeed alarming. He quickly discerned the gravity of the situation. Understanding that Ao Bing was likely in peril, without hesitation, he employed his evasion technique, enveloped in a shimmering aura, transforming into a streak of light. Racing towards Ao Bing's location with incredible speed, the wind howled fiercely in his ears as mountains and rivers swiftly passed beneath him. Shen Gongbao, consumed by urgency, yearned to arrive by Ao Bing's side without delay, eager to uncover the unfolding events.